It's the second last vPub before the summer break. It's that time of year. We're at the halfway point of the year, and it seems like a good time to look back at the last 6 months and consider what kind of whiskey moments 2022 has brought me. This is just a personal list. It's not a best of, it's not a top 10, it's nothing like that. And don't panic, you don't need to worry about your wallets getting a bashing and me bringing on a sudden case of FOMO. All of these whiskies are intended to focus on the fact that there's millions of whiskey out there. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. I felt a wee pang of sadness there when I reminded myself at the intro that it's the second last vPub before we disappear and go dark for a few weeks. But we do that every summer. Everybody needs to take a wee break, and I've kind of decided that summertime is as good a time as any for this channel to take a break, to give you all a bit of peace and quiet from me banging on every Thursday night. But there's plenty to talk about tonight, and there's plenty to get to have a wee bit of fun next week before we break up for the vPub. We're not quite there yet. We're not quite ready for the summer break. I tend to look forward to it and then immediately start to look forward to coming back again. But I think that that's the point of a break, and it's why, you know, if you can do it in your working life, whatever it is that you do, if you can take wee breaks and wee timeouts, even just to remind yourself or just to illustrate to yourself that you missed the thing that you're taking a break from, I think it's a good thing. Anyway, it's just me tonight, no guests. It's just me and a lot of bottles. I've got a lot of bottles to get through and share with you tonight. Some of them have been things that's genuinely struck me tonight. Some of them are just examples of concepts and things that I want to share with you that I think are worthy to talk about. But it's just me. We'll get through them fairly rhythmically. There's no rush at the vPub, of course. And then at some point, well, of course, we always finish out with a wee quiz at the end. But we'll also talk about something that we can get together to do as a kind of community thing for next week, which is the last vPub, as I say, before I disappear. Anyway, this is not intended for anybody to be suddenly running out and saying, oh, this is the next new great whiskey. That's not what it's intended to be. There isn't, I'm not sure that there's anything here that is going to kind of make people panic and suddenly want to buy it or anything like that. It's just about, you know, the experiences and the moments that I've had with whiskey throughout this year. Some of them you'll have heard me talking about before. Some of them you might never have heard me mention. But there's always going to be a reason for me bringing up this particular whiskey to talk about a certain topic, angle, perspective, or dynamic that's happening in whiskey. That's the intention. Throughout that, I'll be sharing little whiskies that I think are genuine, very, very good, very interesting, and hopefully, at least some of them are going to be easily available. But that is the theme for tonight, availability. There remains millions and millions of options and choices out there in whiskey. Anyway, before we get into all of that, before we stick the wheels on, I'm going to jump in to the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. How are we all? Oh my goodness, 256 in. We're just... I've only just opened the doors. Let's see who we've got tonight. I've only just opened these chat boxes up. Usually I'm a bit better and I can catch some of it before we go live, but I was rushing this evening. Anyway, Gordon Fraser is here. Good to see you, Gordon. I hope you're doing well, buddy. Peated is in as well. Frank, tremendous. I hope things are going well over the Netherlands. Jimmy Jazz from Massachusetts, you are, Jimmy, isn't it? I know it's the Northeast US anyway. Jimmy, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Dorpass Whiskey. Tim, we've also met Tim. I hope you're doing well. Jed Smith, how you keeping, buddy? Helen, fantastic, Helen. Good to see you. I hope you're sitting next to Andy and you're both healthy and comfortable. Excess to Scotch is in. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you're keeping well. And Whiskey with Molly, Ben. I managed to spend a wee bit of time with Ben on Monday of this week. I hope you're keeping well, Ben. Matthew Rinke is in as well. Good to see you, Matthew. Captain Bamis is here saying, customary cheers to you, Roy, and the Barflies. Can't wait for these last couple of vPubs. It's nice to have you in. It sounds like you'll be joining us for the last two, Captain. It's good to have you. North Coast Drummer Tony is here. Good to see you, Tony. He's saying good evening. Hope you're well. I am well, Tony, and it's nice of you to ask. Blair Stevenson is here. Good to see you, Blair. He's celebrating being along on a Thursday. It's good to have you, buddy. I know it's difficult for folk. I know you have to pick it up on the replay or skip some weeks and things. It's just the way life is. We're all busy. I just appreciate it when you do have time to drop in and say hello. Jimmy Legg is here. I hope you're doing well, Jimmy. It's not a vPub until the Jimmy Legg's in the house, and he is definitely here. Jimmy, if you're ever not here, you have to have somebody else driving the keyboard for you just to make us feel like it's a valid vPub. Jimmy, I hope you're keeping well. I hope Angela is too. Orange Rule is here. Good to see you, Rule. I've not seen you in a wee while. It's nice to welcome you back. And Alistair Gray up in Speyside is here. Good to see Alistair. Julian Rickman, Jerry Miller, Scotty Monroe, Kilted Moose is in. Good to see you, Scotty. David Larenko, John T. Island Hopper Stewart, tremendous. Whisky Stream, Lee J. Brown, Gav's Drams, good to see you, Gav. David Owen, Carlos San Diego, MTL, absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be, obviously, like I always try to do, I'll be looking out for the orange. So if you're trying to get my attention in the YouTube chat, I'm interacting with the YouTube chat here. All the Barflies are in the lounge and YouTube. And if they type Aquaviti or at Aquaviti, I get a wee flash of orange. And that's how you can communicate with each other. If you're trying to tag each other, whoever you're tagging sees that orange too, and you can have wee direct conversations. I know I'm preaching. I'm teaching my granny how to suck eggs. You guys have been at it for long enough, but there's a lot of new folk in. Just got a message through from a patron, actually, who mentioned that they're not really confident. They don't feel they know enough about whiskey to get involved in the chat. Let me reassure anybody that feels that way, it's absolutely not necessary. We welcome everybody into whiskey, and it's pretty exciting for us when we've got some new blood in and we can vicariously enjoy all the whiskey moments all over again. With folk that are fairly new to the scene too. So don't ever think that you need to know anything to be here. I mean, quite honestly, the content is pointed towards whiskey enthusiasts, whiskey geeks, and it is very focused on knowledge and the sharing of knowledge. But that's part of the thing, is that we have to have constantly interested, curious, enthusiastic new people coming in too. Cal Whisky is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 11 months. Cal Whisky, thanks very much for your support, as is Peter Box, who's been celebrating for 20 months. Peter and Cal, thank you both so much for your support. Barflies, YouTube, there's lots of ads and things on YouTube. Hopefully, if you watch a vPub, you'll notice that there's never an ad. And the reason I can do that, I can demonetize. I don't want to worry about what ads are being shown around my videos. I don't need to make you sit through ads. The Barflies take care of that for me. They press the join. If you're watching on a desktop, there's a join button underneath. You can click that, and for $1.99 in whatever currency you're in, dollars, euro, pounds, whatever it may be, you can join the Barflies and get access to loyalty badges, a colourful whiskey-themed emoji and things like that as well, but also keep the vPub completely ad-free. Javier Villegas is in. Fantastic. Javi is a bit of a spirits enthusiast. He runs a mezcal and tequila bar, and general spirits bar, I should say, in Florida. Epcot, I think it is, in Disneyland, Florida. But he's in here tonight, and I was fortunate enough to spend a bit of time on the west coast of Scotland with Javi a few weeks back. And it was tremendous fun too. Nice to welcome you in the vPub, Javi. I hope you're doing well. Cheers. Danny Hebington is here. Good to see Danny and Jerry Miller. And Whiskey Games Matt is also celebrating being a member with a pink barfly. He's been a member for 28 months. 2-year anniversary, Slantia. Slantia to you, Matt. Thanks very much for your support. Need to be careful because I'm sipping a cask strength whiskey to kick the night off tonight. I just wanted to go back in again and see how I was getting on with this whiskey. The last time I had this, I found it to be quite hot, and it's certainly the case tonight. But isn't it always the case with whiskies, especially cask strength whiskies, that you leave them for a while in an open bottle, and when you pour them, you leave them for a while in the open glass, and you add a wee bit of water and you relax with them, you take a bit of time with them, and suddenly they offer themselves up, and they can become really quite interesting. So I wanted to do a wee check-in because I'm going to share this one with you this evening. MTL has bought me a wee dram to say hi, Roy. Finally made it to my first ever live vPub. Fantastic to welcome you, my friend. It's wonderful to have you in here. I think you're a recent patron too. Fabulous. Welcome. Thanks for your support. Always plan to buy you a dram when I got the chance. Cheers. Thank you, MTL. I'm not sure what your real name is, or maybe I do actually, if we've already started to message, but I've forgotten tonight. But thank you for your dram. Cheers. Before we get revealing the whiskies tonight, I've got a wee kind of unboxing to do. I picked this up just today. I was in town earlier. I managed to meet Glen Duncan, who's over from Tasmania. That was a treat. And also Graham Fraser. I managed to meet those guys in town. Unfortunately, I was driving, so I couldn't spend too much time with them. I couldn't dram with them or anything. But at least I got to have a handshake and spend a wee bit of time chatting. But while I was there, I nipped into Good Spirits Company and I picked this up. I'd already bought it online. I'm not sure if there's any stock of this left. There may or may not be. But I timed it right and I managed to find some stock at Good Spirits Company of this new Northern Highland, Northeastern Highland, malt whiskey distillery. I had no chance of getting anywhere near this when the inaugural came out. But this is Glen Wyvis. This is their second release in 2018. The batch number is 0218, but it's the second release. And the inaugural release that came out was limited, and I know there was a huge amount of bottles allocated to invested parties and things. This is a community-funded distillery, so it was really tough, and they disappeared very, very quickly, and I didn't get a sniff of the inaugural. But true to their word, they've made it more available the second time around. There seems to be a few sticking a wee bit longer, which is nice to hear. I'm finding that a theme right now. But there are 8,000 bottles in this outturn. Now, depending on where you are in the world, obviously they're just a new distillery. Their markets are not mature yet, and they don't have enough product to get out there wide. And it might not be the case for a wee while yet, of course. But Glen Wyvis is actually a very small distillery. They're currently running about 50 to 60,000 litres per annum production. To give you an idea, a sense of scale, that's probably somewhere, similar in terms of scale as, say, Daft Mill. So there's not going to be a lot of this stuff out there. I have never tried it before. I haven't gone near it, but we'll do a wee uncorking just to get a wee reaction tonight. Uncorkings are never, ever a review. I do believe that the bottle needs to be open for a wee while. It needs a bit of time to relax and round out. I don't know. I do believe that there is a neck pour thing. See, we'll get a noise here. It's a good noise, isn't it? So we'll leave that in the glass for a second and see how we're getting on with the new release from Glen Wyvis. A handsome bottle, I have to say. It's quite nice. It's not really modern or traditional. It sits somewhere in between. Yeah, good weight to it, good feel. Orange Will Rule is saying, I shall grab my Glen Wyvis Batch 2 and join you. Good for you. You managed to get one too. Prestige Liquids, Andrew's in as well. Good to see you, Andrew. Andrew Butler is saying, just got a bottle of Glen Wyvis 2 delivered a couple of days ago and haven't had a chance to taste yet. I think it's probably good timing. It's not often I manage that on the vPub. Sometimes a wee bit late to the party. Graham Fraser is saying, evening, Barflies from Glasgow. Great to spend today with Glen Duncan and Aquavite. Oh, that he's talking to Glen. It looks like Glen's in. Glen is saying, finally a vPub in real time in Scotland, because he's in Tasmania. He's usually watching over his breakfast or catching it on the replay, of course. He's saying, good luck wiping the smile off my face. Welcome, Glen. It was wonderful to spend a bit of time with you earlier today. Fantastic. I hope the rest of your trip in Scotland is superb. You deserve it, my friend. Whiskey Bottle Kills is saying, Ewan, happy to make this live for the first time in 12 months. Undocumented benefits of paternity leave. Well, Whiskey Bottle Kills, welcome in, and I hope you're enjoying the paternity leave. Congratulations. And Ethan Sterner is Barfly. Looks like a new name, Ethan. I might not have welcomed you in before. Apologies. Cheers, sir. Scrambling around after getting home from work, but we'll settle in shortly. Good for you, Ethan. I hope you find yourself something nice to help you settle in. And Barter Hordes is in. Roy, how do you think that a bottle needs to be open? Oh, sorry. How long do you think a bottle needs to be open before you get the real experience? Oh, I'm not sure. Sometimes really not that long. We're not talking weeks or months or anything. But certainly, you know, have it open a wee while. And I guess if it's open and there's not a lot of air in here, I don't know how much difference it's going to make. Usually I start to notice a real difference in the real kind of bottle experience comes through when it's kind of dropped over the shoulder a wee bit, but it's all a rule of thumb. And, you know, some people don't really get the neck pour. Some people don't really believe in it. Certainly it's difficult to kind of science away, isn't it? But it doesn't matter. If you get it, it's real. Honestly, if you feel that you start to understand the whiskey a bit more, that it starts to reveal itself a bit more, that it's rounder, softer, mellower, there's 100 different words that it could be applicable for 100 different whiskies. But whatever you experience, it's just happening. So go with it. It does smell like a young spirit, but that's not me saying that it's young and spirity. What I'm saying is that it's very typical on the nose. So there is oak here, some fresh oak, I think some first fill oak. Need to give it a wee read up. It probably tells me what oak is involved here. It says on the back, non-chill filtered, natural colour. The ABV is 46.5% ABV, all looking good. 2018 vintage. There's a vintage statement on here as well. This is terrific stuff. Could do with some bottle info, maybe on the box here. So we've got some marketing about the community nature of the spirit. 100% community owned. Here we go. Batch 2, 2018 vintage. Has been matured for 3 years in our on-site Dunwich warehouse. So 2018 vintage is probably at least 3 years, 3 and a bit years. It's matured in 60% first fill Tennessee whiskey. Okay, that's it's probably fairly easy to make a reasonably accurate guess as to whose barrels that would be. So that's first fill, 60% first fill American oak, ex Tennessee whiskey or ex bourbon, but specifically Tennessee whiskey. Yes, 25% first fill Oloroso. Okay, okay, a decent amount of Oloroso in there. A wee whiff of a kind of lactic note there. 15% refill whiskey. Then you go off to talk about half-ton mashes. Fantastic. 96 hours average fermentation. Good. To the size of the wash stills, 2,500 litres, 1,700 litres. This is nice information. Filled into the woods. They talk about the wood again. Why, the flavours you would expect from these woods. Nice. This is good, natural presentation. And for all the producers out there that are afraid to put this on the label because it shines a light on what they've not been putting on the labels or what they don't put on the labels of the other things, I think it's probably better that you kind of take the move yourself rather than peer pressure, force your hand. The sooner you adopt information on the box or the bottle, preferably the bottle, and ditch the box, the better, I think. Just share the words, just say the words. There's a wee bit orchardy, a wee bit light oak, I would say, is the nose I'm getting from this. Some apple and pear. A wee bit of fermentation, I would say. A wee bit of ripe fruit. A wee bit, tiny bit of lactic. So a wee sip. Light, not too cask dominant. There's a temptation with young whiskey, I think, to throw really lots of super active casks in there, but no, this is quite bright and fresh. It's light. There is a bit of kind of new make element there. It's 3-year-old whiskey. You would expect that, but no sharpness, no alcohol burn. Just nice pepper and light spice. What I'm hoping is I can connect with this bottle in some kind of, if you were to kind of look at my favorite whiskies, and kind of plot them geographically, there would be a concentration of them in that area. If you talk about Inverness, kind of up north of Inverness to the northeastern Highlands, you know, you've got Clynelish there, you've got Chininic there, just off to the left or off to the west a wee bit, you've got Glen Ord. You've got lots of really nice, interesting whiskies, Balblair. So I would like to see this develop. I would like this to become quite a nice, typical Highland whiskey. But that's just me. They can be what they like, I guess. Not bad. Can't judge this tonight. But what I will say, despite all the things, everything, well, checking all the boxes, this is £62.50. I think that's a nudge north of where it needs to be. Listen, they're doing a different thing. Their model is different. They're funding it, and they're going to sell every bottle, no question. There are some distilleries out there releasing at a higher price and bringing their price down as they increase the size of the batches and the vatings. Maybe that's going to be the case with Glen Wyvis, but £62.50 for 3-year-old whiskey, that's smarts. And the theme for the rest of tonight is going to be continuing the theme of the last 2 years of the vPub, honestly, but focusing on a wee bit of that. What price should we be paying? It's difficult to argue when it's their second batch, it's their second release out, and it's going to sell completely anyway. It's community funded, and they're really trying to make a go of things. So, you know, you do give them a bit of benefit of the doubt. But as time goes on, I feel that even as their whiskey becomes more mature, I feel it's important that they try hard to keep their prices on point. And I would suggest this is sitting 15 quid north of where I want to be buying any more of this going forward in the future. Still, it's the first Glen Wyvis for me to have on the shelf, and I'm going to enjoy spending a bit of time with it and getting to know it a wee bit more. A wee bit light, still a wee bit spirity, but still good quality malt whiskey. There's no question about that, even at 3 years old. I've got so many bottles, I'm going to need to use a lot on my floor tonight. Anyway, what say you guys? I wonder if any of you have gone along and opened... okay, Real is saying Glen Wyvis, lemon and peaches, peppery, light spices, linseed. A bit of linseed, like pate or something. Young, fruity whiskey, good first impression, says Rule. I think we're quite similar, buddy. I hope you're enjoying it. Graham Young has bought me a wee dram. Good to see you, Graham. I hope you're well. Cheers, Roy. I'm so lucky. I'm a so lucky barfly today to be hosting Peter and Denise Lee and family around our pool. And in a day or so, Jimmy Legg and Gino Cuomo will also descend for some barfly fun. That's just terrific. Peter Lee's from Paisley. Peter and Denise Lee are over there in North America from Paisley. Hooking up. Barflies hooking up together. Gino and Graham have been friends for years, but Jimmy Legg to be involved in that's just fabulous. That's exactly the type of thing that this community is so good at doing. And it's not me doing it, it's you guys getting together and making your own arrangements, doing your own thing, and it just warms the cockles. That human connection, you can't beat it. Let's raise a wee glass to Gino, Jimmy, Peter, Denise, and Graham, and all the fun that you're going to have over the coming days. Cheers, guys. I wish I was there with you. Slanjava. And thanks very much for the dram, Graham. That's terrific to hear. David Larenko is saying, I was on a session with Bruno Martins. Again, there's David Larenko and Bruno Martins, two barflies, and tasting my Glen Scotia, 11-year-old, that I had and disliked. On the first sip, it was great. I was ready to gift it away to him, but not now, lol. Neck pour does exist. Sometimes it's the neck pour. Sometimes the whiskey just needs a wee bit of time. But sometimes, David, it's us. Sometimes we're not ready to sit and get to know a whiskey. Sometimes with the neck pour, you know, it doesn't quite sit with our expectations and we don't really recognize that straight away. Sometimes we need a bit of time or a second opinion, a third opinion, sometimes more. Peter Louis is also from Paisley. How have I not met you yet, says Blair Stevenson. Just go round to the Kwangtung Chinese restaurant. When Peter's back from North America, of course, Blair, get yourself a wee bit of Chinese food, and there's no doubt that you'll meet Peter Lee over there. He's one of the most active Barflies too. Also, Blair, I'm not sure if you're active in the Barflies Facebook group. That's how most people interact with Peter Lee. Elliot Hopper Stewart is here. Good to see you, Stuart. Felt the same with White Peaks Wireworks. £60 for a 3-year-old was more than I was prepared to part with. Stuart, that might not be the last time that we touch upon Wireworks this evening. No Rolex is saying neck pour defo exists, no doubt in my mind. And Gav O'Connor has joined the Barflies. Gav, thank you very, very much. And no Rolex and Stuart, sorry, it wasn't Stuart, was it? It was somebody else was suggesting that David Larenko, wasn't it? That neck pour is definitely a thing. I think it's a thing. Let's watch what I'm drinking tonight. I'm going to push that off to the side and I'm going to get right on to my first bottle that I want to share with you. Glenn Duncan is saying, Graham Fraser, just the best day for me spending some time with people. So much knowledge like yourself and Aquaviti. Hope you can share your photos. We managed to get a couple of wee photos. Glenn, apologies, I've not sent you it yet, but I will send you the photos that we took today. Fantastic. Okay, let's start. Over the years, I've developed a kind of fanboy reputation for a few different whiskies and a few different distilleries. Back at the start of the channel, I talked heavily about Lagavulin. Then I talked heavily about Clynelish and also talked heavily about Deanston. I think that when you get a kind of good feeling and a confidence and an understanding and a love for whiskies, you do tend to talk about them a wee bit more. I would like to say that I've always tried to be vigilant about that kind of fanboy aspect, but also to recognize it and talk about it and say the words so that you can make a reasonable judgment on my words around those distilleries too. You know that I like these whiskies, and still make an effort to maintain an open mind for all other whiskies and also hold your favorite distilleries up to the same, standards as any other whiskey that you're judging. Sometimes though, even when you do that, these distilleries that you bond with still deliver. Well, there's no doubt that there's a distillery out there right now that I just can't get enough of. I absolutely adore the whiskey, despite it being young, and I talk about it a lot. And I'm going to spend a moment talking about it tonight, but I've talked about it so much that it's not going to be a surprise for you. But sometimes it's not available to everybody, everywhere, all of the time. So sometimes you need to have a wee look to discover what other alternatives are out there for other people to enjoy that might give a similar experience, a similar value proposition, that type of thing. And sometimes we're a wee bit too hasty to act in the opposite way of a fanboy, to dismiss an entire brand, an entire distillery, and an entire range of products because we've decided that we don't like them. And that's just as dangerous as being a fanboy or the fanboy dynamic. Anyway, let's talk about the distillery that I'm all excited about, in case you haven't guessed already. It is, of course, Ardnamurchan. I'm very fortunate here. I'm in Scotland. I can nip out to the Good Spirits Company. I can pick up an Ardnamurchan of occasion, and it started to stick on the shelves as their batches have become more regular, bigger. They've kept the prices the same as well. Ardnamurchan is available now. There's some special editions coming out, single casks. The Paul Lanois, the champagne release is not going to last very long, sure, but their standard core ranges, the AD releases, let's say, these are going to start sticking. You will start to get them, and as they start to stick on the shelf, Ardnamurchan has the ability to expand into more markets, and I think you're all going to love it. The reason I love it is because of the style and the profile, and because it's somehow unique, it's carving its own furrow. This one is the one for 2022 for me. This is the Cask Strength release. You can still find this for sale at retail about £60 to £65. It's still out there, here, there, and everywhere. Not all the time, and if you do find it, if it's at retail price, don't pay over the odds for it. Just grab it. You know you're going to have a fantastic whiskey. This is heavily peated, different from the core releases, which tends to be 50-50 peated, unpeated. This is 90% peated, so a different take on Ardnamurchan. Don't let that put you off. This is wonderful whiskey, and the peat is inside the whiskey. It's not a blanket over the top. It's compelling. It's easy to get through. I have been fortunate enough to pick up a second bottle. I picked it up at the distillery, I think. It's still out there. It's fabulous. That was a 2022 release for me that made me grateful about what whiskey's doing in the future. However, what if you're someplace and you can't get a hold of an Ardnamurchan cask strength? Well, let's just look at what we're talking about here. This is heavily peated, sure. But what we're actually talking about is something that's fairly young. And so I'm in the realms of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old type whiskies. Cask strength, round about the 60 to 65 pounds or less, so no price gouging going on, and in reasonable sized outturns. Why is that interesting? Well, we can start to have fun with pouring some, leaving it in the glass for a little while, like I said earlier, and adding water, diluting it, and watching how it changes. That's the fun of cask strength. It's not a single cask strength, so we don't feel that we're being wasteful. We know that this is something that we can buy more of if we truly love it. It's available. You can track it down. What else is there? Well, the bottle I'm going to show you here is something that I think suffers from dismissiveness on our part. And there are reasons for that, and they're warranted. But I bought this earlier in the year, and I don't remember what my reaction was on the vPub because I opened it for a cask strength vPub. But I don't think I was overly enthralled with it. But mood dependent, I've been quite shocked by how enjoyable this Highland Park cask strength is. Now, this isn't the same as the Ardnamurchan in terms of profile. This is peated, but it's much more lightly peated. But the thing you're going to really notice is the cask makeup here. This is much more active sherry. This is a much kind of more bold, rich, smoky fruitcake type thing, rather than the Ardnamurchan, which is much more maritime, coastal, briny, mineralic. It's a different experience altogether. I paid 55 quid for this, and it's still available for sub £60 today. But it's Highland Park. So because of the Viking pageantry, because of the just confusing range, because of the pricing just going up and up and up, we all just disconnected from our Highland Park. The pricing going up despite the fact that they put natural colour. It's all natural colour. They don't add colour, Highland Park. But it's still out there at 43% as well. This one, not so much. This is out there at a whopping 63.9%. You taste that. This is the one I opened with tonight. But I think I am as much to blame as anyone else. I saw this not as a good cask strength single malt whiskey. I saw it as Highland Park. And it took me a long time to drop the money on it. And it took me a long time to get my head around it. It will also take you a long time to understand it and get the most out of it. 63.9% is not easy to enjoy. You do need to add water. You do need to reduce it. You do need to bring it down. But it is a potent offering. There are lots of other expressions like this. Glenlivet, another not very sexy to the enthusiast label. But their Nudura series has a very similar value proposition, albeit sometimes a wee bit young. Blair Stevenson is saying Highland Park losing the 12-year-old still disappoints me. It was one of my entry-level whiskies. I think we're seeing the 10-year-old everywhere. There are still 12 Highland Park 12s on the shelf. I don't know if that's long gone or if it's going to be gone for a long time, or if it's just a blip. Don't know what the situation is there. I imagine getting information out of Edrington might be a wee bit tricky, but if I'm honest, I haven't tried. Arnie Tiger is saying, what does Ardnamurchan cost in the UK? £45 is their standard core release, depending on the retailer, but £45 to £50 for the standard release. And the cask strength was £60 to £65. Scott Allen is saying, still waiting to see it here in Arizona. When I visited Ardnamurchan, the whiskey was not available yet. Scott, you're in Arizona, so is Drew. Obviously, well, his name, the clue's in his name, Drew in Arizona. Yes, I hope that Ardnamurchans do start making their way into other markets soon. I think everybody deserves to enjoy them. Willie Dollar is saying, I was dry as well, but Aquaviti mention of Ardnamurchan just burst that bliss. Willie, I'm really glad that you're enjoying it too. I don't know if Craig Dollier, my friend Craig, has any Ardnamurchan on hand, but he knows he doesn't need to go too far to get his hands on some. Cal Whisky saying, the Highland Park Batch 2 cask strength is one of my favourite whiskies in the last 5 years. I think this is Batch 2, is it? How could I tell? This is one of the issues. It needs to be obvious. It is cask strength release number 2. This is rich, strong sherry, and there's lots of spice and even chilies on the arrival. It's young and it's bold, it's potent and it's powerful. It does need a bit of time and patience, but it looks like that Cal Whisky has managed to give it a bit of that patience and discover what by the way, I was just drinking it in a quiet moment. I'd switched off, but I'd left it for a while. I'd put water in, and it just hit me. It was just got me at that spot. And then through the night, I poured another couple of glasses, and I was, whiskey keeps teaching us that sometimes we need a wee bit more patience, right? Let's get those out of the way and hope I don't kick them. I've been eyeballing Highland Park cask strength for a while now, says Brian Kilco Whiskey Musings. Brian, if it's not too expensive where you are, consider it, buddy, especially if you're a fan of the style. Lunara saying, is the Highland Park full volume still available? Really lovely in a bourbon cask. Well, the full volume was originally an export market only for Highland Park, I think. That was their exclusively, as you say, ex-bourbon cask. And I got to try only a sample of it. I didn't ever have a bottle of it. But you know how I feel, Luna. There needs to be more exclusively ex-bourbon core releases out there. Not everything has to have sherry and wine in the mix. Gordon Fraser tried an absolute belter of Highland Park at Canehead's warehouse tasting. It was called An Orkney, and it was 50 quid and worth every penny. Well, that's what to remember. It's a good point, Gordon. We're paying, let's imagine an 8-year-old Orkney came out onto the market through an independent bottler. What would we pay for that? 50 quid, 60 quid, 70 quid, something of that order. The official bottling, okay, it's not a single cask, it's not a small batch, it's a fairly big batch, it's big vatting, but that should mean that it's pretty solid. It's coming out there and exactly in the middle of that price band, in the sweet spot. And it's always available. It's something we can share across borders. Rob Halford, have you managed to try the AD release yet? No, that's not true. I have tried the AD release. They've got it at the Bon Accord. So by that, what Rob's talking about there is they've stopped the batch numbering where they were doing month and year and then batch number. They're just calling it the AD, and that numbering has moved to a small number on the back of the bottle and on the box. So you're going to find it a wee bit more difficult to tell immediately what bottle you're looking at on the shelf, which batch it is. You need to pick it up and have a wee look at it. But what that tells you is that there's confidence now coming from Ardnamurchan that they're getting some consistency in their batches. As long as they don't lose that batch designation on there, I think it's malt whiskey. It's not designed to be the same every time. By definition, it's a batch product. Put the batch on the label and keep it there. Jimmy Legg is saying, just stuck a nose in my first Ardnamurchan Aquaviti. Lemon bomb. I agree. The cask strength is also full of lemons as well. Salted lemons, smoky, sooty lemons, all sorts of lemons. But look for the mineral side to Ardnamurchan as well. Oyster shell, seashell, slate, that kind of thing. Sandy McDonald is saying, I don't like adding water to my whiskey cask strength or not. Am I alone? Sandy, spend a wee bit of time with me and we could have some fun with that very concept. I know, I get it, and I am also a wee bit lazy at times, and I tend to often just sit and drink things neat at times. But when you do add splashes of water, drops of water, then a splash, then a teaspoon and things like that, you really start to understand the whiskey much, much more. Especially nosing a whiskey. On Monday at Loch Lomond, we did this exactly. We were taking very young new make spirit and diluting it down to 25% in order to nose it. and it was nosing wonderfully well at that strength. I'm not suggesting that you drink all your whiskey like that, but sacrifice 1 or 2 wee drams. Drown it if you have to, just to see what happens. It can be quite revealing. And Mark is saying, I saw some Nudura at the duty free, but was nass. Took a 15-year-old Glenfiddich, home at 51.5% ABV. Yeah, the Highland Park, Mark, is also non-age statement as well. And that's probably, if you're saying the 15-year-old 51.5% Glenfiddich, hopefully that was at a good price. But a lot of these whiskies, they tend to be a wee bit younger, 6 to 8 year, that type of order. It doesn't mean they're bad whiskey. The days of poor 6 to 8 year old whiskies are behind us now. I think that the quality of younger whiskey is much better because of the way that the effort that they're putting into the spirit, because of the way they're managing the process and the maturation, the cask management, the investment in casks. All of this is just, I know it's broad brush and it's not the same everywhere, but my feeling is that things are a lot better. And Penny in the Slot is saying thanks again for that dram. So I bought Penny in the Slot a dram at the Bonaccord, and I went down to take it down to him, and I missed him. He must have either sneaked out ninja style, or maybe he'd gone out the back door or something. I'm not very sure. It's good to have you in, buddy, and I'll have a chance to buy you that dram back again. In fact, here it is here. Because I had to leave, my lift appeared outside. I was still sitting with 2 drams in front of me. Here is I think it was the Ardnamurchan Cask Strength. And here is the Ardnamurchan AD that I was drinking myself, that I was able to put in a bottle. The staff at the Bonaccord, I think it was Ian, in fact, gave me wee bottles to take away so I wasn't wasting my drams or having to shoot them. The worst thing you can do. Don Miguel is saying recently found 3 dusty bottles of Highland Park Dark Origins for €50 each and a little wine bodega bargain. Dark Origins was one of my friend, the Whiskey Revs, one of his favourite drams was Highland Park Dark Origins. He loved it. Harrow Whiskey Weekend Dram, good to see you. Liked the Ardnamurchan Agua Vitae. Waiting for the Glen Scotia 8 to come up. Loved that one. I don't have the Glen Scotia 8. Not yet. I still don't have it. But I hear you, Harrow. It's a good shout. Tommy Elmer is saying, is there something to a Scotch and soda maybe? Oh, I do love a Scotch and soda or a highball. I like playing with it as well. I like seeing it, just throwing a wee bit of lemon in occasionally, a wee bit of a mint leaf, and there's all sorts of twists and takes on a highball. But for summer drinking, it's a wonderful thing. And don't think that you are wasting malt. The flavour of the whiskey that you put in that highball completely changes the highball. I do love a wee highball. Love it. Be careful. It's a very fast way to put whiskey down your throat. So make sure you're careful with it, especially in the heat of summer. Anyway, we've got the first one out of the way. Let's move quickly on to the next one. It's already been mentioned. I think that this is a contender for one of the best new whiskies to arrive on the market, honestly. I'm absolutely loving this bottle. I wish there was more of this available, but alas, there isn't. This is a brand new English distillery. This is from White Peak in the north of England. This is their first release. This is Wireworks. Now, we're still in the realms of young whiskey here. We're in the same vein as Glen Wyvis, and okay, Ardnamurchan's been out there a wee bit longer. This is a new whiskey distillery. Why am I talking about more of the same? This is compelling. This is very, very good whiskey. Everybody that I've poured it for, nobody thinks, I'm going to have a wee teeny drop of this. I'm being quite careful with it before I pour something else, just as I talk about it with you. It's rich, it's full of flavour. That mouthful was nutty and licoricey and spiced and warm. This does an amazing job of being vibrant and alive, drawing from the casks, no question, but not parading as a young whiskey. Some alchemy has happened down there, and I think it's amazing. This is STR and bourbon cask. So STR is stripped toasted and recharred. So that's different from a dechar rechar. So when they rejuvenate in a cask and they dechar it and then they rechar it again, there's another thing that they do in an STR. So what they're doing is they shave and then they toast. So that's a heating element typically to bring a light toast to the wood. And that does affect the wood. It affects the makeup of the wood. It affects the flavors that's made available there. And then when they char it, that toasting layer is underneath. So an STR is slightly different. And then obviously bourbon casks have used as well, which will also have just that char. Anyway, there wasn't a whole lot of this around. This was a 5,000 bottle outturn and it disappeared very, very quickly. If you manage to get a hold of one of these, you'll know why I'm talking about this. Whiskey with Molly Bennett saying, I had a sample of Wireworks, but glad I didn't pay for a full bottle. Promising and will deliver in time, but too expensive just now for what it is, Ben. I have to maybe disagree with you a wee bit. I think if you spent more time with it, more than just a sample, you might be shocked just how good it is. Maybe the next time we're together, if you remind me, I'll bring some along. I thought it was fantastic. But I take your point on price. Like the Glen Wyvis, 62.50. This was a 65 quid bottle. However, I did whinge about it at the time, despite being very glad to have it. And there's a new outturn from Wireworks. This is the small batch. This is STR and bourbon again, same as last time. 46.2% ABV this time, so a wee bit lighter on ABV. This one was a wee bit higher. This was 50.3% ABV. But other than that, most of the presentation is the same. It looks like there's 4,323 of these. So it might be that it's not that there aren't any more, but this is a bit cheaper this time. They dropped the price. I don't know if this is available everywhere. Dramface Whiskey saying, any follow-up information on last week's guest statement that rebranding is coming very soon to Anok. Getting worried myself as don't see much 18 currently in stock. Don't panic. Please don't panic. I should need to remind myself that when I'm taking these, I'll use what I've been using to open parcels. When I'm uncorking to get the plastic seals off, you really need a blade around most of the time. It can be tough to get them off, but I think that's the point. Yeah, I wouldn't panic at all about the Anok, Tim. There's going to be plenty of Anok out there in the supply chain. And, if they do a rebranding and they do a Balblair or they do an old Pulteney and they blunder it again because they've been listening to marketing agencies rather than listening to their own people, then we can make a decision at that point in time. It would be a shame for sure. But are you really panicking about Anok 18? Especially when the Speyburn 18 and Speyburn 15 is so good. And there's 101 other whiskies out there doing a very, very similar thing. There's plenty of whiskey, but I appreciate what you're saying, and we get a like for something. We really want to hang on to it. Okay, so this is a brand new small batch Wireworks. I'm just going to put this in a wee no-nonsense whiskey glass and leave it there for a wee bit. See how we're doing. This has been here for a wee while. I got this delivered a week or so ago. I don't know. There's no bottle shock or anything here. This hasn't just arrived out of a box. It should be fairly settled. But James Burgoyne seemed very happy to have White Peak near me and know their whiskey ambassador, Spiritworks Tom. Aye, that's right. Aye, I think Tom is actually involved now in putting some of the whiskies together. He's maybe had a hand on this thing that's in the glass. But Tom, my opinion, isn't a condition of friendship. I hope you're enjoying it, James. I hope you like it too. Whiskey Malt Content. Oh, good to see you, Vlad. He's saying, thank you, Roy, for another great vPub. We dram on me. Cheers. Cheers. Thanks to you, Vlad. Thanks very much, my friend. Blair Stevenson saying, won't see closing time tonight. Leaving for my stag do tomorrow morning. Need to be fully hydrated. However, signing off with an 18-year-old Rumcast Lochloman from SMWS. Right, let's raise a wee glass. What have I got here that I can just dive into? I've got the wee Glen Wyvis here. Can everybody raise a wee glass and say congratulations to Blair, who's gone off to get married soon. He's having his stag do tomorrow, so probably in the next few weeks he's going to be committing himself. Raise a glass and say, Blair, congratulations, my friend. I hope it goes swimmingly well and you don't get into too much trouble on your stag at the weekend. Slancher buddy, thanks for dropping in with us before you disappear. Cheers. Had a brilliant time in my stag do. It was great fun. And sorry, Vlad, thank you very much for your virtual dram as well, buddy. Cheers to you. Helen is saying the latest Wireworks is still available on Master of Malt. I wonder what the price is, Helen. I'll do a quick check, shall I? See what they're charging for it. It should certainly be less than 60 quid this time. So, Wire. Small batch. Aye, 59.94, just a nudge under the 60 quid mark. So, which is cheaper than last time around. But they're up against it because Ardnamurchan is putting out a cask strength at that price point, right? And I get it. You know, there's a fervor for the product just now. They're really wanting to, you know, people really want to get their hands on it and try it, especially after the first one was so good. But like the Glen Wyvis, 60 quid for brand new whiskey is too expensive, guys. It's still too expensive. I know that you're not making millions of pounds. There's not people running about in flash cars on the back of these things. But it's a grind. Whiskey's a slow thing, I think. And I think it's difficult to look cool if you put it out at this price and then further batches become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. That kind of, for people that aren't in the know, they read that differently. Listen, I appreciate it's a challenge, I know. Ellen Proper Stewart is saying, so I was wrong not to shell out 60 for Wireworks. Only batch 2 available at the distillery when I dropped in last week. Well, Stuart, I hope, did you get a chance to try it first? Falscraft is saying the last 6 months showed me. Scarabus is currently my favourite smoke. Brilliant. Brilliant. I got involved in a chat on Facebook where somebody was slating it. I thought Scarabus, all 3 Scarabuses, the original non-age statement, the new 10-year-old, and now the batch strength, cask strength version, are all great value whiskies. Number 2, Falscraft is saying my favourite summer whiskey is now Kingsbarn's Balcony. So that one I haven't tried, but the Dream to Dram I loved. And Graham Fraser was telling me today that Kingsbarns are still using 50% wine yeast. I don't know if that's all the time, but I need to look into that. The current Glenfarclas 105 is not compatible with my current palate. Glenfarclas 105 can be a bit up and down. I've said it before, it does suffer from batch strength. And Jimmy Legacy saying, Sir Scallops, is that a note? This Ardnamurchan is turning my head around. I wonder if that's in a positive way. So Sir Scallops, you're getting that seashell note, aren't you? You're getting the lemon thing, so maybe that's where the Sir Scallops are coming from. Fantastic. Ahoy Malt mates, Everwind is in, was lurking on my drive home. Good to see you, Everwind. I hope you're keeping well. Everwind is saying, damn, 369 people in the vPub. I remember the days when there was 30 of us. That is worth a slant, yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Chris. You were there from the very, very beginning too, and I appreciate it, buddy. Ethan Sterner is here saying, finally setting in while the laundry does its thing. Speyburn companion cask in the glass to start. Now, there's one I've not tried. I'm a fan of Speyburn. We might be talking about it a wee bit later. Tell me what you think of it, Ethan. Okay, let's go into the new small batch Wireworks. It's open now. Still a wee bit quiet in the nose. Still a wee bit nutty though. Not a lot of alcohol heat, not a lot of burn, and certainly no hint of new young spirit again, once more. Active casks here, potentially, maybe the STR, or it's doing its thing. Alchemy. The Glen Wyvis is obviously young spirit. It's standing up and saying there, I'm Scotch, I'm 3 years old, and this is what I taste like. It's very honest, very open. This is doing some kind of magical kind of cloaked thing. It's brighter, fresher, and more spirity than the first one. but there's very little chance that many of us would pick it out as a 3-year-old whiskey. I think it's youthful, and it comes across as youthful. There's lots of vibrance there. The finish is quite long. It's quite textured. There's a nice grip to it. Softer than the first batch, maybe to do with the ABV. There's a clean cocoa, mocha coffee, almost chocolatey note in there. The fruit, I would go with red apples, red berries. But again, listen, it's the same as the Glen Wyvis. You can't judge a whiskey based on a neck pour. But this would be easy to shout about if it was 50 quid or less. It's difficult for me to shout about it at 60 quid. It's 3-year-old, 4-year-old whiskey. Is there any details on the age of this? That probably, as I should spend more time looking at this before I share it with you guys. Putting a vintage on it like Glen Wyvis would be good. Listen, we know the age. We know the age of the distillery. It's probably going to be no more than 4 years old. But it doesn't taste like that. Yes, it's the cask that they've used to put this one together, but it's also a marker of the spirit that they're making. Some quite ripe fruit in there. Fermentation, so the ripe fruit, you're tasting a wee bit of the fermentation thing in there. You can always imagine that you're in there with the ripe kind of banana aromas and things that you get when you're hanging around washbacks. And again, a good whiskey. Listen, I'm happy to have both the Glen Wyvis and the Wireworks. It's going to be interesting to see how they both develop. But I think that the Wireworks is already ahead of the game there for my personal palate in terms of, which is frustrating, right? Is our neighbours south of the border. But it's the truth. The inaugural Wireworks was not only just one of the best new whiskies I've tried this year, but one of the best new whiskies, full stop. Quite an incredible job. Beat of 2022, 384 and counting, the vPub at its best. Listen, welcome everybody. If you're in, I'm just going through the whiskies that have struck me this year so far. We've covered some Ardnamurchan, we've covered some Highland Park, we've covered some Wireworks. Now we're going to go into a whole whiskey category that I think is just getting more and more exciting all the time. And the theme tonight is going to be that there's always more whiskey. There's more whiskey, there's more whiskey, there's more whiskey. This whiskey is saying, usually in my experience, STR refers to wine casks. Did I miss that? Usually DCHAR, RECHAR, scraped RECHAR is what they refer to do with old hogsheads. We had a fantastic demonstration at Loch Lomond on Monday where you saw, it was an American barrel that was put into a machine, and you saw the steel brush stripping this cask. Brutal, but it only takes a few seconds. Then it's out and it goes on for a 3-minute burn. Now, the burn is really violent. This charring is really, really violent. The cask is on fire by the end of it, and they douse it with a bit of water to put it out again. And then from there, it goes through for its pressure and integrity checks and things like that. And you see the cask getting finished off and ready for a refill again. Makes you feel sorry for the cask, the brutal thing that it goes through. Right up until you taste the liquid that comes out of them. No Rolex is saying big competition when you've had the high standards set by Lakes and Cotswolds. Well, Cotswolds, they're doing an interesting thing because so much of their product is sold through multiples, through supermarkets and things. Not everywhere, of course. But I think that they must have found a way to reach quite a volume in order to achieve that. I hope it's working for them. I struggle to pay these prices for new whiskies now, knowing how much supreme Whiskey is around, says Gordon Fraser. At cask strength, 10, 11, 12 for £45. It depends where you are on your journey, and I can understand that. If there's so much whiskey to explore, why would you go in paying 40, 50, 60 pounds for 3-year-old and 4 or 5-year-old whiskey? I get it. But when you've been around and tasted all these supreme whiskies, you're looking for the next thing. And it's kind of my position. I want to be able to try these things, and at least it puts me in a position to at least make light comment on them with you guys. And I want to know, and it's exciting for me to try all these new spirits, and it's exciting for me to realize that despite all the granularity, despite all the variation that we're going to see from all of these places, that the whiskey can be different. Most of the time, it can be very different. A wee dram I've almost missed. I hope I'm not missing any drams tonight. Carlos San Diego is saying I had to take a break to give my daughter a driving lesson. I'm a little behind now, but thanks for helping my heart rate return to normal. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to ever have the patience to give my kids driving lessons. I think I'm going to have to get somebody in to do that for them. I hope your nerves are not too shattered, Carlos. Nice to have you in, buddy. Greg Watchman 999 is saying STR processes on YouTube under Cavalan Tour. I believe they use that process a lot. It was famously instigated and championed by Jim Swan, the late Jim Swan, who was very much involved in Cavalan, as well as a lot of our much more domestic distilleries as well. That would be a good one. If anybody wants to put that link in the chat, I'll make sure that it goes through for anybody who wants to see it. Bill Monteith is in, saying cheers, Roy and Barflies. Cheers to you, Bill. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. I'm getting through my glasses here tonight. I have to be careful. What is this I've got here? This is the one I opened with. It's my Highland Park cask strength. Still bold and powerful despite a big glug of water in it. Anyway, there's still a category that's still not particularly sexy. It's still priced aggressively most of the time, and it's still yielding amazing drinking results. It's not for the purist. It's not for the purist. I understand why they have to price it well in order to get engagement with it, but I think that is changing, and I think the more producers that jump on board with good examples will help us enjoy blended malts much, much more as time goes on. I've got notifications pinging here, so I'm just going to shut down the app that's doing that. Good. Okay. I'm, of course, talking about blended malts. So, I'll do what I always say. We're talking about malt whiskey. It's not the same as a blended whiskey. This is not blended whiskey. This is malt whiskey. There's no grain whiskey in this at all. It's just malt whiskies that are mixed together. And if you imagine, that should be the best whiskey that's achievable, right? You can take malts and create something with the end goal being that you have something that's greater than the sum of its parts. That should be possible in the hands of somebody that's talented and capable and understands whiskey. And we've seen it happen. Compass Box is able to charge good chunks of change now for blended malt whiskies. Now, they're very transparent, and when we see an expensive Compass Box, you only have to look at the makeup to understand what made it expensive. They're also very good at bringing out lower priced, good value blended malts, such as Spice Tree, Orchard House, and others. More and more, there are other producers coming into the fray and offering different takes on very good quality blended malt whiskies, showing us how good a thing this category can be. I've got two here. One's been a slow burn for me, but I've come round to it. It's a wee bit pricier, but we'll talk about price. And there's another one that's just come onto the market that is really quite unbelievable and fantastic. And if these guys can keep doing this, my goodness, they've got a winner on their hands. Anyway, we know about the Dougie Lane Remarkable Regional Malts. We spoke about it last week on the vPub. Thanks to everybody for supporting that vPub last week and all the kind comments. Everybody enjoyed hanging out with Stuart Baxter last week and enjoying his candid, open, easy, calm enthusiasm. It was fantastic to have him on, and I enjoyed last week's vPub. Your comments about the last week's vPub is very much appreciated. Thank you. But he brought on Timorous Beastie, and we talked a wee bit about blended malts for a while, and there was an earlier vPub involving Stuart Baxter when that was the core topic of the entire vPub. I'm not going to talk about remarkable regional malts tonight, and I'm not going to talk about Compass Box. I've got two different ones here. The first one I've got here is from the Billy Walker stable. This is McNair's. Now, McNair's is a brand that you're going to see on various different types and styles of whiskey. Reek is one of them. You're also going to find it on rum. And so McNair's is almost acting a wee bit like Billy Walker's independent bottling arm, if you like. But Reek is a blended malt Scotch whisky, and this particular one has a 12-year age statement on it, and it's at 46% ABV. There's a higher ABV one out there with a 10-year age statement on it, and there may be some special editions, but they're all Reeks are blended malts. An idea here is that they make, this is a peated expression, Reek, it's the clues in the name, but they're taking Speyside and Highland whiskies and blending it with, I think it's Speyside and Highland. Oh no, it's Speyside and Islay. Apologies. That makes sense, right? Peated. Speyside and Islay whiskies and blending them with Glenallachie. That's what this blended malt is. So you can see that then Billy is able to extend his product offering, his range, his flavour, his variation by using blended malt as the theme. This is a nudge north of where I want it to be on price. I felt at £50 for a 12-year-old blended malt in the current climate. It was a wee bit expensive. But as I've spent time with this and it's dropped over the shoulder, there's a lot of flavour packed into this wee bottle. And I suspect that the Speyside and Islay malts that they've used here are pretty good Speyside and Islay malts mixed in with that Glenallachie. This is natural colour. It tells us on the label. It's got a beautifully rich dark colour, as you can see there. It does say natural colour on the label. It does, and it tells us that it's non-chill filtered, as we would expect, and it's 46% ABV. £49, I think I paid for this. As I've got to know this bottle, this has got better and better and better. It's not a peat bomb. If you're really looking for maximum peat experience, it's somewhere a wee bit more restrained than that. Just where I like the peat to be, in fact, where the peat is part of the thing rather than the thing. Fantastic. What say you about blended malt whiskies? Danny Hebbington is saying, I have the Orchard House, Timorous 18, and Campbellton Loch, all fine drams. I agree, Campbellton Loch. I think I managed to get a second Campbellton Loch. I did. I'm very grateful about that because I'm tearing through. I've only got a wee drop left of the first bottle of Campbellton Loch. Very glad to have that. Timorous Beastie 18 is often very, very good value, as is Orchard House, about £40 to £42. Non-age statement, but again, because it's Compass Box for the Orchard House, you can look behind the scenes, work out what's in there, and you know exactly what's going on. Jaime Not Jamie is saying, did somebody say blended malts? I see Douglas Link's Epicurean Reef Salt and Scallywag 12 Cask Strength. Hopefully you're enjoying them too by the sounds of it. Jaime, great stuff. JG is saying whiskey cheers. Cheers to you, JG, as well. And Helen is saying, sipping a blended malt at the moment, Campbellton Loch, super dram. Have bought the Thompson brothers to take on holiday to the lakes this weekend, and I'm looking forward to that. You're ahead of me again, Helen. Don Miguel is saying, Compass Box No Name number 3 featuring Bamor Lafroy Kleinleash Mortlach, still one of the best peated malts I have ever tasted, says Don Miguel. Compass Box No Name number 3 I didn't try, but I loved one and I loved 2. Jimmy Like is saying that Reek just became available to me. Am I buying it for $97 Canadian? That's about the same price as me, Jimmy. Let me suggest that I'm going to take a wee glass here now. I take a wee sip of this and do a double check. $97 Canadian. I don't know what that means now. I've just poured it there, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but if I hold it up, maybe not. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that there's a magenta highlight to this. There's a bit of a wine cask thing going on here. You can see it. You can see the colour. It's natural colour, so we're able to interrogate it and enjoy it as natural colour, right? Spirit was then laid to rest in premium American oak barrels, sherry casks, and French oak barriques. So that would be the French oak barriques. that's given us that colour, I'm pretty sure. So I think those barriques have been used for wine. I think we're getting a bit of a magenta colour. I don't know if I could put a bit of white paper or something behind it to let you see, but the camera won't pick it up. Anyway, Jimmy, let's see. Fizz. Wee bit of fizz. Lovely. Puff of smoke. It's not all about the smoke. It's in the background. It's an easy drinker. Blended malts tend to have that nice kind of easy, moreish thing where I don't know how that is. I don't know if it's intended. Everything in here is 12 years old and above, so it's a 12-year-old product, $97. You can judge that based on the age where you are, Jimmy. But I think that, I don't know what the exchange rates are today, but that seems like a similar price to what we're paying. Jimmy, I'm going to say aye. Go right ahead. Tell me what you think about it. If you don't like it, I'll give you the $97 and I'll have the bottle off you. All right. And as Helen has quite rightly pointed out, my second one is going to be this one. Thompson Brothers. This is an 8-year-old. Suddenly, as I hold this up here, I feel like I might have shared this with you in the past. I don't think so, though. I don't know if it might have been in a lock-in with patrons or something. But I've bought a few of these now because they were available from a few retailers everywhere, and I started to gift them. I tasted it myself, and I said, okay, this is an interesting wee thing. And I started to gift it out to people when we were doing tours and things like that. And I was meeting up with people just to say thanks for their time or whatever. I'd hand them over a bottle of this, amongst other things. This is an interesting take on blended malt from Thompson Brothers. There's a picture of a vat on the front here. It's called SRV5, and it has an age statement on it. It says 8 years. And what they're going to do is, this is a 1,200 litre vat. I think it's European oak vat. I think it is. So it's almost like a mini washback. It's like a little washback. And what they'll do is they'll fill it with liquid, they'll let it vat, and they'll only ever empty 2/3 of it at a time. So each time they charge it up, the Solera system kicks in, and that theoretically it's going to be building older and older elements in it all the time. That's interesting to me. It'll never be older than 8 years old because, the legislation suggests that in order for Scotch whisky to age, it has to be in an oak vessel no larger than 700 litres. But that's how the Thompson Brothers have gone around this. This is immensely peaty. This is much peatier. I'm just going to pour it into this same glass. I've got a couple of clean glasses left for a wee bit later. But this is quite a peaty whiskey, and it's much lighter and brighter and fresher than the Limerick I've just tried. But I've been enjoying this very much. And there's a nice story behind it. The Solera system is a nice story. Again, I'm pouring tiny amounts tonight. I've got quite a lot to get through. The Solera thing is a nice, interesting story. And it's going to be interesting to see how it changes as it goes forward. But do you want to know the real party trick of this whiskey? It's fresh and bright, very peaty. You would maybe nose this and think Islay. I would be an Islay nosing this, absolutely. Very light, bright. There's some floral elements there. This is not a rich whiskey, but it's flavoured. It's flavourful. There's a creaminess to it. There's a waxiness. The texture is excellent, ridiculously good. The ABV is a nudge higher than it needs to be at 48.5%. I think that's a good call. There's a good weight to this. This is quite robust. But it's a light and fresh style. A wee bit coastal even, a wee bit mineralic. The soot and the peat on the palate reminds me of Islay. Excellent. Party trick, £35. £35 for 8-year-old, all natural, interesting, good quality whiskey. Integrity still exists here and there in whiskey. And I'm not suggesting that anything I'm going to share with you tonight lacks integrity. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, just because you can charge something doesn't mean that you should. Your integrity is worth a hell of a lot more when you do projects like this. I hope the Thompson brothers are making money at £35 a bottle, because this is the type of thing that makes me relax a little bit about sharing whiskey and about enjoying this going forward. This isn't a huge outturn. I don't know how many bottles they managed in their first outturn. I bought a lot of them. I don't even know if they made 1,000. If you consider that's a 1,200 litre vessel and 2/3 of it comes off 800 litres, I think maybe their outturn for this one was only about 800 bottles. So they perhaps don't fill the vat to the top. What chat am I missing? Has anybody tried the Thompson brothers yet? Matt is saying, had the SRV5 at our society tasting last week and it split the room. I think because each person was picking out different tastes from the blend. Oh, that's interesting. But it's also, you know, any time that you're sipping things in contrast, you're also, especially if it's a bottle that you have at home, you also owe it to the whiskey to drink it in isolation too. Some whiskies shine and sipping it in contrast with other whiskies. I mean, obviously it depends which whiskies you're sipping in contrast with each other. And other ones can suffer a wee bit when they don't really deserve to. I can see why this would split the room, but ask people to spend a wee bit of time with it. Ask them to pour a second dram, a third dram like I have, and ask them to focus on interesting things like the texture and the value of it. Just the value of it. It's relaxed drinking when you know it's not really expensive. Had the Thompson brothers 2010 11-year-old blended malt, 50%. That is outstanding. Different images on the label gives hints to the distilleries. That's interesting too. I love what Thompson brothers do with their labels to give you hints. Jed is saying, thoroughly enjoying the Ben Nevis 10 I popped open last week. Almost no colour, but still delicious. Aye, yeah, absolutely. We don't need to rely on dark colours for whiskey. The more people understand that, the better we'll all be in. The Solera system, says Don Miguel, is part of the Spanish culture of making wine and spirits. Proud of it. Absolutely, Don Miguel. It's a super interesting thing. And those cresaderas you have, the layer by layer or the batch by batch, but they are never fully emptied. Used to be a Solera system at Speyburn. Really interesting. I paid £60 for a bottle of 25-year-old Solera Speyburn. I think it was about 2015 I'm going back to now, but it was on clearance at my local supermarket. A 25-year-old Solera single malt whiskey, £60. I gifted it. I thought that I would just be able to get another one and replace it again, and I went back and obviously it never reappeared again. I'd love to have tried that. I should have tried that. Dramface Whiskey St. Thompson brothers doing amazing quality independent bottles for very good prices. Lucky for me, they're making their way to K&L in California. Well, they don't make their way close to me very often. Some of them do. So I don't have to join a lottery to get one. A long may it last for you, Tim, as well. Lucas is saying, I'm trying Tomatin 15 right now. Ex-bourbon and 46%. Nose seems nice. Terrific stuff. Tomatin 15 is a favourite of a lot of folk and better presented than others. The legacies of 43%, 46% for their 15-year-old. I hope you're enjoying it, Lucas. Fantastic. Yes, £35. And I think compelling whiskey, despite Matt suggesting that it split his room. There's a lot to be said for interesting whiskies too, and if it splits the room, that can be a good thing. I would suggest that spend a bit of time with this, you're going to understand it more and more. Right now, it's very Isla forward, I would say. But there's a nice texture to it too. We've moved on, says Helen, to a wee dram introduced to us by your good self. Signature vintage Glen Ord, 13-year-old. Defo up there with one of our drams of 2022. Superb whiskey. I love that too, really did. I hope you're enjoying it, Helen. And I'm going to, not specifically the Glen Ord, but I will touch on that as a concept a wee bit later on tonight. Yes, I actually do enjoy the palate too, says Lucas. The Legacy is one of those bottles that seems to be insane value right now, and it has been for years. And you can judge the Legacy because you know you've picked up for a cheap price, and it's 43% and things, but it's famously done terrifically well in every blind that I've ever put it in. It's one of these kind of almost bizarre legends of the vPub and blind challenges. Jimmy Legacy, oops, Highland Park 21 is nosing a bit better than the Ardnamurchan. Independent bottling of Highland Park 21 is nosing better than the Ardnamurchan. If you need to go to a 21-year-old Highland Park to nose better than the Ardnamurchan, surely there are only compliments there, Jimmy. Fantastic. Anyway, let's move on. Please don't look past blended malts as a category. Please don't let that blended word put you off. Look at it from a value proposition, understand who the people behind it are, what's the target, what's the thing here, and go with it, especially if it's priced well. I think you might be surprised. Some of my favourite bottles here to just burst open and share and enjoy and relax with are often blended malts. The more time you spend with them, the less of a purist you become, and the more of a kind of whiskey celebrationist you are. David Larenko saying, Glencoe 8-year-old, 56 euros for a Ben Nevis blend, Cask strength, great, just take my money. It's very different take on a blended malt. It appeared on an earlier vPub, David, when we talked about Cask strength whiskies. I think it was Cask strength was the theme that night, and I talked about the Glencoe 8-year-old. When it's available, it's great, but it's a very specific style of whiskey. It's quite a dirty whiskey, very reminiscent. Despite not all being Ben Nevis in the mix there, apparently it's 3 malts. It's still got that very, very familiar Ben Nevis profile. Jimmy Legacy, nope, still a purist. That's why you and Doc got on so well. Yes, nope. What about in between? I'll continue to try and work with you, buddy. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is this one. I'm enjoying this right now. I've got something really bothering me, my ear. I feel like I've got a flea in my ear. Jimmy Leg? I've been talking about this for a while. Benny Fries has just bought me a dram that jumped up there before I start talking about this. A while ago since my last vPub. No, never a problem, Benny. Don't worry about it. So half a vPub live is better than no vPub live, and insisted to join one of the last vPubs before the summer break. Have a summer dram on me, Roy. Cheers, buddy. Benny, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. What will I raise a glass of? Hey, I'll raise a wee glass just to say Slancheva to you. I think you're in Denmark, aren't you, Benny? Copenhagen, I think, from memory. And say Slanchu, thanks very much for your dram. And the second last vPub before the summer break. Cheers, Benny. Thompson Brothers. No, that's the Thompson Brothers. Anyway, I have whinged about the whiskey that's in my hand in the past right now. And I said that I wanted to celebrate this whiskey. Unfortunately, there were things that made it difficult for me to celebrate it. They're starting to get a wee bit more mature now. They've had product out there for a little while. And I think that the maturity is starting to come through in the whiskey. It's a wee bit less jaggy, a wee bit less raw. It's still young whiskey. We're still talking about 4-year-old whiskey. It's still pretty young, 4, 5, 6, but it's getting a wee bit better. I feel they're probably getting better at making it. The whiskey's getting deeper, more mature stock, so the vatings are getting better, all of these things. But the big thing is, look at this bottle. Glasgow, it's got my city's name right on it. Really want to celebrate this, so I pick it up and I look at it and I say, wow, 46% ABV. I flip it over and it tells me, I do believe that it tells me on the label that it's natural colour and non-chill filtered. I'm pretty certain it does. It might be in tiny writing, but we know it to be so. But the reason it gets this really dark colour is because this peated expression is using Pedro Jimenez casks. My problem with this, it was £50. Why is that a problem? Well, so many of these other new whiskies are at a similar price. That's the target I'm asking people to meet or get under £50. Well, this looks like a regular bottle of whiskey, but it's actually a 50 cl bottle for £50. So this is £70 whiskey. And I always that kind of bothered me a wee bit. So I was buying the miniature packs. They've now got their original, which is their fruity, spicy one. They've got this one, which is their peated, rich and smoky one. And they've also got their triple distilled as well, which is a much more recent addition to the lineup. But they're all 50 cl bottles, so I just always kind of backed off, stuck with the miniatures. I did go out and buy this one because I was enjoying it very much every time I tried it, and I decided to buy a bottle. But I haven't really been shouting about it because of that 50 cl. Well, in recent months, they put out an announcement, didn't they? They decided that for the same price, they were going to change their policy and put it out there in 70 cl bottles. I hope that that's staying focused on the bottles there, and you can see the difference. This is a handsome bottle. It's always been quite nice, but there's more different embossing and things on it now. It just looks better. It's better. It's a 70 cl bottle. I'm not going to open the new 70 cl one. I've still got a bottle here to finish off. This is their Peated expression, and I have absolutely loved sharing and enjoying this and tearing through it. Very rich. The PX, I mean, look, PX is taking a sherry cask and turning it up to 11, isn't it? And peated whiskey is taking malt Scotch whiskey and turning it up to 11, you could argue too. But somehow when you put the two of them together, it just seems to work. Sweet, rich, easy drinking. The closest you'll get to a dessert peated whiskey. Wee bit of coffee and chocolate. It's almost like a cappuccino note or something in the background. This is still young whiskey, but again, it parades in I can't think of 50 quid whiskey that you can buy that tastes like this. It's not easy to get. It needs to be talked about a wee bit more. I think this is an enjoyable whiskey. I think it's now at 70 cl. It's at a price point that we can engage with it. It's potentially going to be getting better and better and better the more they can draw on more and more mature stocks going forward, and providing the price stays the same or gets better potentially, the better a value proposition it becomes. I said that if this distillery started to put things into 70 cl bottles, I would be one of those that started to talk about it a lot more. And that's what I'm doing. Well done, Glasgow Distillery. Well done for bringing us 70 cl bottles. Well done for keeping the price the same. And I wish you all the very, very best. I'm looking forward to getting to know your triple distilled and your original a wee bit more. Hopefully all of that will come in time. 1770 Peated, says Willie Dolier, is an absolute belting dram for the money. But he qualifies it, he says, in 70 cl. Glad you're enjoying it, Willie. Noob question, says Barter Hordes. Why is 70 cl standard in the UK, but 750ml is standard in the USA? Is there a good reason? We used to have 750 here or 75 cl here as well, Barter Hordes, but when we joined the European Union in 1992, the switch kicked in, actually. The harmonisation meant that we moved to their spirit bottle measure, and we just agreed that we would all be on 700ml. It's less of an issue in the modern era. Now the US has taken 700ml bottles from us, 70 cl bottles. So we care a wee bit less, but it's always worthwhile checking and knowing whether it's a 750 or a 700, especially if you're in the US, Barter, of course. But that's the reason. That's the only difference. We used to be the same as you guys, but as we moved closer to metric and harmonisation, that's why it changed. Just realised, says Falsgraf, if you need to phase out of heavily peated whiskey to make way for sweeter stuff, Ardnamurchan is also a great change point within a flight. Wow. I often quite enjoy going from peated to non-peated. Glasgow have come down in price in Germany. Fantastic, Jolly Rover. 700ml bottles of the peated, currently €46. Getting good now. Fabulous. So this idea that a new distillery starts up and they need to make money and get the capital back and do all of these things, but then gradually as they go forward and they kind of stretch their markets and stabilize themselves, they can start to address price. Maybe there's truth in that, but also I think a lot of it's to do with the taxation and the bargains that you guys get in continental Europe, specifically Holland and Germany. It's quite amazing the prices that you get. I'm often left jealous. And Tim is saying, poured my first dram of the 6 Isles blended malt at 43%, which includes Islay, Jura, Skye, Malt, Orkney and Arran. $22. Wow. So hope it's great so I can buy a few more. Aye, $22. My goodness. How can... So it must be very young whiskey. Islay. Let's guess it's Colila. Jura. Let's guess it's Jura. Mull. I get... Oh, sorry. Skye. Must be obviously some Talisker. Wow. Is this... How are they getting Talisker stock to mix in there? Mull, obviously Tobermory, Orkney, obviously Highland Park, and Arran, of course, must be Arran, $22. It must be quite young, Tim. Let us know how it is. Lucas is saying, I tried the fruity thing 3 years ago, but I always was kind of annoyed by the 50cl. They're finally on my radar now. Fantastic, Lucas. Feedback to us if you find that they're doing well. Tommy Elmer is saying, anyone else want more Lechick to come to the States? Nice dram. You're not getting enough Lechick. I absolutely agree. I think it's a fantastic dram. Everybody's been banging on about the new Sinclair series, despite it being a non-age statement. You remember it featured last week in the vPub, and I forgot that it was in my blind flight a couple of vPubs before that too. Poorly done, says Jimmy Legg, for releasing 50cl to begin with, is another way to look at it, Aquavitae. Aye, but that's the difference between you, my friend, and myself. If possible, try to dwell on the positive side when it's a clear option. But I hear what you're saying. Must be hard for new distilleries, though. Holy Boris is Ben saying, Aquavitae, did you just find a benefit to Brexit? Can we go back to 750 bottles? Would you trade that? I wouldn't. Donner Pass Whiskey is saying only concern with 700ml bottles in the US is that we could lose our 43% export entry-level bottles. I don't think so, Tim. I don't think so. The 43%, I think that's going to stay. I think that's going to stay. It just means that stock that's existing and bottled for the UK and European markets can quickly be relabeled or have a different sticker set up and things put on it and shipped without. I think it's just going to make it a wee bit easier for trade. I hope that was certainly the spirit of the intention there, I think. Anyway, let's move away from my locale. Let's go out into the world. I've already featured an English whiskey just for posterity. I want that. But I want to talk about 2 world whiskies that I think are quite compelling and interesting. One of them was a gift from the community. This was from Canada. And the other one I bought myself. Both excellent and both I'm very much enjoying. Neither of these whiskies taste anything like Scotch, and that's amazing in itself. They're not competing with Scotch. They're trying to do their own thing, and they're doing their own thing very, very well. Both of them have some similarity in that they're very craft-focused. They're just trying to make the absolute best product that they can. Both of them are still quite young, but both of them have made a big name for themselves. Canada and Ireland. Let's bring up this Canadian one first. Graham Young was in earlier talking about hanging out with Gino, Jimmy Legg, Peter Lee, and Denise. But he gifted me this. Otherwise, I would never have had a chance to spend any time with it. This is Canadian 2 Brewers single malt whiskey. Now, it's a sequential release. This happens to be release number 30, which also happens to be, you can see there's a wee red cross there. It says Peated. This is one of their Peated releases here. I'm not going to drink this tonight. I've had quite a lot of peated whiskies so far already. This is not trying to be Scotch. It's not trying to be anything else. But what it ends up being is unique Canadian. I can't put my finger on it. I can't put my finger on what's making this different, but it doesn't taste to me like a typical Canadian whiskey either, because honestly, up until very recent years, I didn't always have good experiences with the Canadian whiskey that we could source here. This is not Scotch. This is good whiskey. I think if you were a Scotch lover and your only lane was Scotch, you would have to kind of open your mind a little bit to fully get the experience from this. But with a bit of time, about this much time, you're going to start to understand this and understand that this is a very high quality, excellent product. Now, why am I bringing this up? We can't buy this. It's hard enough to buy 2 Brewers in Canada. Why would I be talking about it from me sitting here in Glasgow? Ben Demon Hunter is saying, yeah, it's 2 Brewers, very exciting. Absolutely. Because I'm trying to reassure everyone, the label on the bottle doesn't matter. This is a zeitgeist. This is a movement. This is a direction. And the traditional, conservatively minded, mass market focused organizations that are not placing themselves in a position to pivot and move with this could find themselves short in the not too distant future. These new exciting brands that's coming on the scene are doing it from a different perspective. Quality, flavour, first. 2 Brewers, this bottle. Graham, thank you. I'm so glad to have it. I think it's terrific. I'm going to fall off this stool tonight. I'm going to put those bottles on the floor. I need a table this side as well. In that very same theme, let's go over to Ireland now. And batch after batch after batch, Dingle showed us that they could change a wee bit. It was batch, of course, but they came out with their first single malt whiskey. 46.3% ABV. It tells us on the label that it's non-chill filtered. I remember discussing the issue of colour. It is naturally coloured, but I did have a wee complaint to Graham, you'll remember, that they didn't put that on the label. I don't think they did. But also had a wee whinge that they didn't tell us what batch this was. I mean, we're having to kind of look down for bottle engravings and crazy things like this to discover the batch, when really this is malt whiskey. It doesn't matter whether you make it in Canada or Ireland or Scotland or wherever, it's batch made. Tell us what the batch is. Kept a clean glass for this. This is one of the most unique whiskies out there. It tastes to me all about the fermentation. I know that I'm unique in that. I know that it's just what I taste from it. But it's very much about the fermentation side of things. And I think I could pick this continually from blind lineups because it's so distinctive. And so delicious. Different and delicious. Dingle. Not expensive. I would suggest that when I checked this fairly recently, let's have a quick check to see if it's still available. 50 quid, still available, still on the shelf. These products are sticking now. There's a brand new Irish distillery. They've had a few batches out there now, but this is their first large-scale release, and I just keep doing it. If anybody is sitting around on their laurels just expecting things to sell on brand, there's a noise coming from over the hill, and it's this noise, and it's about flavour, and it's about quality first. As if you didn't know. A couple of world whiskies there, along with that Wireworks, along with other whiskies from all over the planet right now that's bringing some great stuff. Dramface Whiskey Tim is seeing a lot of Canadians in the know put 2 Brewers on the top of their new small artisanal distilleries. Yeah, I know I'm getting a lot of feedback about who's the other guys. Shelter Point. Again, it's difficult for us to get a hold of that as well. There's a lot of noise about the releases of I've been lucky as well through Graham too. Honestly, the Lot 40 releases, specifically the rye releases, the cast strength ryes. The Canadian whiskey has a capability of making a really good, compelling product. We don't get a lot of it here, but when we do, It's reassuring to see the variety and see the differentiation there. It's not the same. It's a different take on whiskey, and it's wonderful to enjoy. Falscraft is saying, yes, Roy, if you had a mind space and time left, spend some more of it to get firmer on the Irish whiskey landscape. It's to do worthwhile, says Falscraft. Aye, there's just so many. I think we're up at between 40 and 50 Irish distilleries now. In the space of 20 years, or even 10 years, you know, that's just incredible movement. It's an incredible scene. And the incumbents that were there, Bushmills, Middleton and laterally Cooley, they've known an expansion and a growth like you could never have imagined. It's incredible. Cal Whiskey saying, what do you think of Slane Irish whiskey? I've got a bottle of Slane here, Cal Whiskey, but it's not open yet. It was a gift actually from my pal Louis. I don't know why I've not opened that Slane. I maybe need to get my head around it, but I'll tell you that it's a 40% ABV Slane that I have. I think it's just a standard entry level one. What do you think about it? More importantly, my friend, the whiskeyographer is saying, have you seen that the Glasgow Peated has won best Lowland single malt at an awards? I don't know what that means. The online Scotch Whisky Awards is the only awards I pay attention to, of course, because I'm part of it. It's difficult to understand award schemes, but the online Scotch Whisky Awards is fully independent. It's voted for by the community and enthusiasts. Other awards, I would always ask their how they, is that paid for? Do they need to pay for entry? Do you need to buy seats at an event? All of these, they're lucrative business models at times. Not all of them. I shouldn't say that about them all. But I wonder which awards it's had, which award it's been given. I hope it's a good, full of integrity award, because I think that wee whiskey deserves it. Tim is saying the Six Isles is no stop and stare bottle, but for the price, it's a nice fresh wee hint of peat summertime dram. Good stuff. Ian Bruce is saying, Roy, do you think that it's difficult to get the Canadian whiskies here in Scotland? Why do you think it's difficult to get Canadian whiskies here in Scotland? Ian, I haven't seen a bottle of Two Brewers anywhere. I've certainly seen no Shelter Point. If you tell me different, if you tell me that we can buy them, that would be interesting. And certainly when I did see, I think I saw some Shelter Point, it was ridiculously inflated in price. And Ben is saying the Glasgow 1770 Sauterne is a meaty barbecue extravaganza. I haven't tried that one, but it sounds like you enjoy it, Ben. And Helen is saying the Glen Ord works really well with dark chocolate. Really brings the fruit and waxiness to the fore. You're having a nice time there, Helen. Cal Whiskey saying I'm slightly biased towards Slane as it's part of our group, but the new stuff to come from the distillery is amazing and not at 40% ABV. Now you're talking, Cal. Now we can taste a bit more of that stuff that you're enjoying. Let's quickly keep the pace up because I want to talk about this. How can I talk about compelling whiskies in 2022 and not talk about anything from Springbank? Before you say, Roy, stop, we can't get any Springbank. I hear you. I hear you. I know what it's like. Even if you go to Springbank Distillery, it's a lottery what they have on the shelf. They usually have decent stock of their 10 or long run on age statement, that kind of thing. But even then, it's not guaranteed. I know what's happened over the last couple of years. I think it's softening again. I don't know if it is. But the cage bottlings, you go in there, there's a queue in the morning. The cage bottles, if there's any put out there for sale, they're gone. Maybe later in the day, they'll put one or two out. They're gone. Even if you make the pilgrimage down to that distillery, all the way down to the end of that peninsula, the Kintyre Peninsula into Campbelltown, you're not guaranteed to get something. So why would I rave about the whiskey? Well, because they need to hear that the reason that that's happening is because they make fabulous whiskey. And it's still fabulous today. Those of us that are brave enough to open these bottles, most of us that's in here probably, drink and enjoy them, know that the whiskey is fabulous. We need to let the guys and girls that make that whiskey know that the stuff that they make is fabulous. But if you make that trip down, if you make that pilgrimage to Campbelltown and you walk into the visitor centre and there's no cage bottles and the shelves are looking bare and dusty, congratulate them on their success. And then buy a bottle of this. This is the Longrow example, but honestly, they'll offer you a Kilkerran. They'll offer you a Hazelburn. They'll offer you a Springbank as well. I've got a couple more over there. This is from their infinity bottles. These are from their big glass demijohns, and they're always full. You're not going to leave Springbank empty-handed. Now, I know that everybody's after the local barleys and the latest this and the 21 and the 18 and the oh my goodness, it's all hype. These are fantastic whiskies, but they're ornaments and becoming more so all the time. This is a way to connect with the full flavour of Springbank, Longrow, Hazelburn, Kilkerran at £55. I think it's 55 quid. And this is 58.8% ABV at the time that this was bought. This is fabulous whiskey. It doesn't pull any punches. It's full on Campbelltown. It's full on Springbank. It's full on whichever one you want to buy, the triple distilled Hazelburn, the heavily peated Longrow, the lightly peated Springbank, or the Kilkerran. This is fabulous stuff. We can still get it. Yes, you need to go to the distillery. I understand that. But there's whiskey there for those who really want it. Please don't go to this distillery and just keep buying collectibles, ornaments. Stop hoarding it. What you're doing is filling that glass loch. It's whiskey. It's meant to be open and enjoyed while we are still alive. Because if you leave it there, it might be an appreciating asset, but the more appreciates, the less chance it's got of being drunk. By all means, tuck away a wee bottle or two here or there as a wee investment, whatever, but don't. Whiskey's not about that. And open it, enjoy it. We're a long time dead. Springbank is still available. You can still get your hands on it. The amount of people that must walk into that visitor centre and because they don't see a cage bottling or a special limited release or whatever available to them, they maybe just turn about and walk away. That would be a mistake. Don't discount these. If you're interested to know a wee bit more, today's release on Dramface, it's what a wonderfully written thing it is as well, by Dougie Crystal wrote the piece. It's a kind of over-the-shoulder vicarious trip into Campbelltown via a sailboat. Talks you through the whole first day, the arrival and everything, and then tomorrow is part 2, where they go through tours, they go through the bottles. He talks about a cage bottle versus the demijohn bottle, a review over both days as well, full of wonderful spellbinding pictures. Dramface.com. Go along and have a wee read at Dougie Crystal's stuff. Part 1 is out today, and then part 2 will be out tomorrow. I hope you enjoy it. It's full-on whiskey, dialed up to full Campbelltown, and you can still get it. Jimmy Legge is saying if they offer me a Kilkerran, they will get their hands bitten off. It's there. Kilkerran is there. Gordon Fraser saying, with you there, delicious stuff from the demijohns. Not age statement means nothing when whiskey tastes this good. Nobody tastes that whiskey and considers what age is this or whatever. They just wall on how good it is. I managed to get some Kilkerran 12 recently. I'd forgotten just how drinkable it is. Good for you, Blackfen. I'm glad you managed to get your hands on it. It's a treat. Helenswood is saying, was gifted a bottle of the Longrow by the wonderful Peter Lee for my birthday last year. It's going to Isla with us in September. Good for you. I bet you love it. Hoyt is saying that Hazelburn 13 Sherry was excellent. And Lucas is saying, I could not drink a Springbank. Too damn fine. Okay, there's 2 nots in that sentence. Let me read that again, Lucas. I could not drink a Springbank. Too damn fine. I'm going to raise a wee glass to you. Superb, my friend. Cheers, Lucas. Cal Whisky is saying, couldn't agree more. Whiskey is best shared. You're fitting in perfectly here, Cal. Dribs and Drams is saying, I don't collect and I don't mess about with secondary. Everything I buy will eventually, oops, it jumped, buddy, eventually get drunk. Thanks, Dribs and Drams. I agree, and you're in the right place. David Larenko is, listen, I don't want to judge people. I know that maybe there are some backup bottles I've been guilty of putting behind and hoarding, some bottles for a special occasion. Listen, let's don't broad brush. But I think we're forgetting how enjoyable whiskey is, why it's invented, and I think we're slipping into this, but it's increasing in value, it's increasing in value. It's only increasing in value right until the point that all of those hoarded bottles make their way back onto the market and there's nobody there to buy it because all the investors aren't investing in it anymore, so they're away. All the drinkers are too busy being distracted by, all the drinkers are too busy being distracted by investment rather than drinking it anymore. We need to just remember why the whiskey exists. And when we are drinking it, feed it back to the people who make it, that they're doing good things. David Larenko is saying, how easy would it be for Springbank to just increase prices or decrease quality to surf the wave? But they didn't, and that's worth saying. Well, just wait for the flippers to move on to other brands. I can't stay like that forever. David, it's David, isn't it? I've been calling you David all night. Apologies, David. But I hear what you're saying. Falsgraf is saying, thanks for the reminder. Haven't been on Dramface for over a week. Falsgraf, you've missed it a wee bit, my friend. Aye. Still going strong. During the summer, there's going to be Monday to Friday content. We're giving the writers a wee break and not putting out Saturday, Sunday content. It's all fine. And then when we swing back in again and all the writers are back up to full speed, we'll be running at daily output again, hopefully again in winter. Billman Teeth is saying, I had a taste of the Long Roast 16 and I was blown away. By the way, on Dramface, that note, there's a space. I'm going to put a thing out on Dramface, or one of us will put a thing out on Dramface to say that there's a space for a writer opened up. So if anybody's interested, they feel like they can write creatively about whiskey, if they can tell a story, if they can critique a whiskey balanced in a fair way, honestly, integrity forward, all of these things, just type a wee email to hello@dramface.com, roy@dramface.com. Yeah, it's we're accepting. It doesn't go through me, but I'm happy to pass it on. It'll go to our sub-editor and see what kind of content comes in, but there is a space opened up. Bill Monteith is saying, had a taste of the Long Roast 16 and was blown away. So I just picked that one up. Sorry, I ignored it, Bill. Long Roast 16. I've got the Long Roast 18 up there. I haven't tried the 16. I wonder which one that is. And Lucas is saying, cheers, Roy. No bother, Lucas. Don Miguel is saying, recently bought a 10-year local barley 2021 for €90. Thanks to my friend who owns a liquor store. I think I'm going to open it right now. Why not? That is one that needs a wee bit of time. That is a whiskey that reveals itself over the course of the bottle. It's not going to give you access to all of it at the first pour. Don Miguel, I don't know where you are. I think you're in Spain. Take your time. And I hope you love it. I wonder which one it is. Hellswood is saying, I have a few bottles put away as a bequest for our two boys, but the majority of the collection will be opened and enjoyed. I think you're in the majority there, Helen. Fantastic. Jimmy Legg is saying, when is podcast 10 coming? Jimmy, podcast 10 is out. Podcast 10 is out. If you're a member, so it's similar to the model here. I'm funded by the community through Patreon. Dramface is the same model. There's no sponsorships, no partnerships, no industry freebies or deals or contracts. Nothing like that exists. Everything is from the audience perspective, and it's funded by the community. And Dramface is funded through the membership. It's completely separate from Aquavita. It's a completely different thing. It's got to survive in its own right, but I believe that there's a place for that. So members pay for that. Members get access to the podcast a few days early, Jimmy. I think you're a member. But regardless, if you're looking for public podcast access to podcast 10, I think it's out on Tuesday next week. Alan Newland is in saying, does investment include investment just to drink? Oh, I like it, Alan. You can come back again. That's a good way of looking at it. And Bill Monteith said it was a single cask eyes, Long Roast 16. Okay, where do we go from that? Will we go somewhere else? We go to, I'm going to finish off with a couple of bottles of just regular Scotch that's kind of really, you've heard them from me before, but I'm going to mention them again. But before I get there, I'm going to mention indies. And I have to mention indies on this channel here as a concept, not in Dramface. You can go along to Dramface and we're quite happy to review an indie because so much of Dramface is about not just a review for a specific bottle of whiskey, but that preamble is full of anecdote, story, insight, information, context, deeper understanding. There's depending on who the writer is, there's something woven into every bottle review on Dramface. That's at its core. We will review things that you cannot buy because it's limited, because it's expensive, because there's an opportunity to tell you about it and tell you what we think of it, for you to vicariously enjoy it through us. But also, it doesn't matter how rare something is or how expensive it is. There's an argument that, especially when it's expensive, it deserves to be critiqued a wee bit more, held to account and reviewed and looked at as flatly and as calmly as possible. And Dramface will seek to do that. But even when it's small scale releases and independent and single casks, that kind of thing, we'll still seek to review those. But you'll often find that rather than just focus on all the details and specs of that bottle, we'll review that bottle and give you those specs, but we'll also give it some context and backstory as well. Indies. If you're fortunate enough to be in a market where indies are celebrated, then congratulations. I think that after a bit of a drought for a few years, the age is dipping and the price is increasing. Of course, it's whiskey and it's what we're seeing generally. That occasionally we're starting to see some really quite, and I don't just mean interesting, I mean barnstormer, fantastic whiskey experiences coming out from indies. And these are often part of a wider outturn, and they slip under the radar a wee bit. And that's when you rely on places like Dramface to pluck these out and say, hey, this is a good one. It's a very good one. Dallas wrote a review earlier in the year from Cadenheads on a Manickmore. A Manickmore, I mean, it's almost dull to even say, right? But this was a 13-year-old Manickmore. This was £70, I think 60 something of that order. So it wasn't cheap. It wasn't a bargain. 13-year-old, 54.3% ABV from a bourbon hogshead. But this was obviously a heads up. It was a heads up to Dallas. It was a heads up through his connections. He tried it. Wow, this is amazing. Went on to Dramface. Suddenly it becomes one of these bottles that everybody has to get their hands on. He was very good and he got a bottle for me. And it's difficult to, what is it that makes this good? What is it? How can I articulate to you why this is a good whiskey? It's very similar to this from What Whiskey. This was also reviewed on Dramface. I did not buy a bottle of this. I'm very sad to say. This 14-year-old Glen Elgin is from Scott Monroe. He left it with me. He's told me that I can drink as much as I like. I'm sorry, Scott. I have been enjoying it. But you will get this bottle back. But it's a fantastic take on Glen Elgin. Peaches, pineapple, orange, sherbet, and golden syrup. I've just noticed the tasting notes on the back of this as well. I would agree with all of those. 14 years old. Where's the ABV on this? 51.3% ABV. It's hard to read on that pale blue background. Just a terrific, terrific whiskey. Roy, how do we know when an indie's going to be good? Why should we risk on buying an indie? Well, we risk buying on an indie. That's the first thing I would say, because you get to know indies that you feel are going to not let you down. That's the first thing. The next thing, you've got Dramface there. You can get an idea on what distilleries, what producers, what bottlers or whatever are potentially bringing good things to the market. And last of all, you're part of this community. Word gets out. And depending on where you are in the world, depending on what outturns are available to you, don't discount independent bottlers. The pricing has gone up. There's no doubt. But it's not down to gouging. It is a little bit here and there. It's more often than not down to the money that has to be paid for these casks now. The value of the cask has increased significantly. Every step in the point of taking that cask into bottle, into your home, all of that is increased too. All of it's getting a wee bit more expensive. So we work together as a community with resources right across YouTube, in places like Dramface, 101 other independent review sites out there as well, like Malt Review, like whiskyreviews.net, like the Dramble, like so many more that I could ream off. That's all out there for you to discover. Chatter starts and you can discover things, incredible things like this. Tropical. It's a green note tonight. We like mint. It's fizz. There's a richness, there's a weight, there's a robustness to this. You would never place this as Manickmore. It's just obviously been a very, very good cask. An excellent, excellent example. And the difference between any other run-of-the-mill Manickmore is slight, but that plays out significantly in the palate and experience, doesn't it? Ben is saying, interesting that you weren't really talking about any of the established distillers tonight. Nothing on Isla. None of the main Speyside or Highland distilleries. Thoughts on why? My point, the whole theme of tonight, Ben, is that, you know, the scene is just, it's at a critical point right now. It's never been more expensive. It's never been more in demand. It's never been more. The incumbents are just about to be not challenged like they've never been challenged before from all directions. Independent bottlers, international, new brands, new distilleries starting up, distilleries getting better at what they do, Renaissance distilleries coming back to life. It's happening everywhere. There's this real kind of excitement of it all. It can't continue without the audience growing, without the customer base growing. And if we start to play towards an investment customer base or luxury goods and play with fashion, these are dangerous. It's difficult to come back from that. But if we grow the audience through giving fair pricing, good quality products, bring more and more people into the brands all the time, that's what's going to secure the future of Scotch whisky, English whisky, Irish whisky, world whisky. If we focus on the cash grab, if we focus on no, we need to charge this because the market will pay this. We'd be leaving money on the table if we didn't charge this now. Sorry. That short-term attitude is not going to fly. That's us. Why don't we have a thought for the next generation? That people that are going to take over those roles in production, those roles in sales and marketing, those roles right across the industry. Why are we not thinking about them? We are just guardians of a thing, and we have to leave it in better shape than it was when we took it over. And I think right now we're being a wee bit too short term. We're being a wee bit too greedy. If you're here as an enthusiast, as a drinker, you're immune. Because while the prices are expensive, like right now, we can work together as a community to find the things I'm talking about tonight, Ben. And if the things are cheap, unless we are worried about the value of our investment that we are hoarding, there's nothing to worry about. The whiskey will become easier to afford again. If you're a drinker, an enthusiast, you can be a wee bit immune. Some naivety in my words, but that's why you're here. The Dram Log is saying, I have that McNair, one of my best buys this year. I bought it after reading the review by Dallas. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Dram Log. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it too. He's saying, thank you for tonight. I'm nodding off. Oh, I'm sending you to sleep, buddy. We'll catch up on Dramface before I go to sleep. Need to read the 7 Watt Whiskey review by Dallas. Good night, everyone. That's right. There was a review out by Dallas this week with 7. He sampled every single one of the new Watt Whiskey out, Tom. So he's not just gone in and picking one at a time on this occasion. He's doing the whole lot. I bought an 11-year-old a signature vintage McNair, says Jimmy Jazz, from that review and loving it. Fantastic. So that's the intelligence. McNair is a place to go, a place to explore. That's interesting. Oh, here's a signature vintage. It's not the Cadenheads one, and then Jimmy ends up with a under the radar distillery that he's loving. Tim is saying, spent the whole vPub tasting indie bottles, just arrived today to check if I want to buy more. The answer is yes. I've learned to check the sherry casks in case they are a sulphur bomb. Fantastic, Tim. Chris S. BWE. Wow. That looks, do I know you, Chris? Sadly, I have purchased too much to open. I have 50 plus bottles sitting in a closet waiting to be opened, and they will be with friends. We need more moments with friends. That's what this is all about, buddy, and I agree with you fully. Indie Bottlers Rabbit Hole is one we're enjoying of late. Some fab drams out there. What's Still You and Signature Vintage, Glen Ord, Canmore, Glen Cadam, Whiskey Broker, Craig Allachie. Sublime stuff. Absolutely, Helen. Andrew Pearson saying the biggest problem for all of them is the current economy. People simply won't be able to afford whiskey like they have done previously. Are we seeing a recession on the horizon? I think we're already feeling it, Andrew, and I agree with you fully. Whiskey and Wine Trials is saying, Aquavita and all, have to leave the vPub to go to a Scotch tasting. My first 10 will have to wait till next week. There is a quiz at the end. I've got 2 bottles of Scotch to share with you before we get there. How am I doing for time? We're over the 2-hour mark, and it's just me. How do I do this? How do you put up with this? Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. Ian Bruce is saying, I have been enjoying a few of the Single Cask Nation bottlings. Ian, I wonder where you're located. Single Cask Nation tends to be, well, it's become more available in Europe, certainly in the UK, but they're very much focused in North America. I think Ian, you could be in North America. I'm going to finish tonight with 2 single malts that I struggled with this. I wanted to just kind of hold up 2 bottles to say, okay, after all is said and done and the dust settled, if I'm going to grab 2 bottles from regular core range releases, more or less core range, that have really struck me, that have made me want to share it with everybody, and everybody that I've shared it with has went, okay, I agree. Then these are the 2 I'm going to go with. Let's get this one off the table quickly. I've talked about it so much. It was even talked about last week in the vPub. But I poured this on Friday night last week for a lady, a very dignified lady that lives across the street. And she's usually a wee bit picky with her whiskies. And I have to be careful what I pour for her. She likes a Glengoyne. She likes a sweeter, fruitier sherry cask of occasion. But I poured her this Speyburn 15. And I tried her with a couple of other drams, but she just wanted this. She wanted this back again every time. It was Eileen across the road. Eileen, I know you don't watch, but occasionally you drop in just for kicks. She loved this. Everybody that I've let try this loves it. This is odd because it's bold and thick and heavy and robust. There's lots of dense flavour in this bottle. And yet, maybe it's the texture, maybe it's the delivery, maybe it's how it's put together, but this Speyburn 15 is just so good on the palate too. It's just, I'm tearing through it. Every time I think I need to get another bottle of this, I need to get another bottle of this. I paid 55 for this one. I think they're about 53. I think it's terrific whiskey. This is a huge contender for my whiskey of the year. And there's a renaissance happening as well. So it's not just under the radar incumbents like Speyburn, but there's a renaissance happening up the road at White and Mackay's Fettercairn. I don't know what's going on there, but it's good and we need to encourage it. We need to talk about it. We need to shout about it. I loved the Warehouse 2 Batch 2 release. That one was a wee bit of rye casks in there. This is odd. I shouldn't like this. This is wine casks and rum casks along with bourbon. But this is fabulous whiskey. I'm tearing through this as well. Just amazing stuff. Again, 53, 55 pounds, similar price. That's for very young whiskey. This is a 2015 vintage on this one. So you think, wait a minute, for 2015 whiskey, 53 pounds, are you serious? Forget about the specs on this bottle. Forget about those odd cask selections. This is Fettercairn. This is what's been neglected for years, with a wee bit of careful handling, a wee bit of thought, a wee bit of transparent, full, natural colour, no chill filtration at presentation as well at a good price. Now we've got a new distillery that we can get excited about. The new Core 16-year-old is also pretty strong as well because it's all natural now. But this release, if you can find it, just pick it up and just wallow in its glorious fruity flavours, tropical fruity flavours. Fantastic. Gordon Fraser saying, I need to get one of those Speyburn 15s. You do, buddy. It's too much. It's too much now, Aquaviti. Okay, just me going on about it. I hope the price hasn't changed at all. Danny Hebington is saying, that's my whiskey so far. Batch 3, though. Mentioned it at the top of the show. Fantastic. This is Batch 3, the one I've been talking about. Batch 2 was amazing with the rye casts. This is also amazing. 2 different things, but they both have that wonderful kind of tropical thing that Fettercairn seem to have always masked or hidden or abused. That's not happening anymore. And it's great. There's stuff coming all the time. Don Miguel is saying, Old Speyburn 25 Solera, still a popular whiskey in Spanish whiskey stores. Wow, 80 euros. Delicious stuff. Maybe I'll be able to find a wee bodega somewhere that I could pick that up. And that 2015 gift that I gave away that I wish that I'd opened and tried myself, I might be able to pick up Don Miguel. One to look out for, don't you think? Gordon Fraser is saying, too much Roy Love, need to get one. I think you will enjoy it. And Jaime, not Jamie, is saying, got a second bottle each of Speyburn, 15 for £38 and 18 for £56. Where did you get such a deal? Great value, Jaime. I'm going to suggest that it's probably in continental Europe you picked up such a thing. So I think we've covered everything. I think we've covered, and so let me just say that so many of the whiskies that I've been talking about tonight, either through me or more likely my peers, have been covered on Dramface. And if they haven't, they've been talked about me on this vPub. And if they haven't, they've been talked about you guys amongst each other in the community. Often, some of the tips and things and new discoveries I have don't come from me just exploring and randomly poking around here, there, and everywhere. They're recommendations from you. This is a reciprocal thing that we have here. And my whiskey life is all the richer for it. Joe Knightley's saying, picked up a Loch Lomond Open special edition for €30 at my local shop. Affordable and tasty. Can't wait for the Open next week. Cheers from California. Aye, a lot of us are looking forward, hoping that we can be a good show over there in St Andrews, Joe. Cheers to you. Look out for the 2020 Open special release. The one that didn't exist. There wasn't an Open competition last year because of the pandemic, of course, but there was a fantastic bottle of whiskey from Loch Lomond to celebrate it. Peter Box says, Speyburn 15 is $99 Canadian here in Alberta, Canada. That's worth it, Peter. It's honestly worth it. It's about the right price too. Fantastic. I hope you... Probably the one that really compelled me was a wee bit lighter than this, the Embrace batch variation at Speyburn Anok 2. So you will see colour variation. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. Fantastic. I hope that's been worthwhile for you. I've taken you through a hell of a lot of bottles tonight. I really have. It's going to be tricky for me going through and doing the timeline afterwards, doing a wee bit of housekeeping so that you can skip ahead and see what I've talked about. But I wanted to just kind of do a bit of a brainstorm and talk about concepts, talk about that idea. Let's not panic. Let's not instill FOMO on each other. Let's just find recommendations for each other. Let's just enjoy the variation and all the choice that we have coming from every direction, everywhere. It's quite amazing. Jimmy Legacy, going on vacation, Roy? Yep, I'm hunting bodegas for Speyburn. Amazing. Aye, I'll be on holiday during the summer break, Jimmy. I'll be away. I'm hoping to get to Spain. Please let it happen. Speyburn 15. Oh, sorry, I picked that one up. Sorry, I just missed Jimmy's comment there, but Peter Box, I did pick up your one. Okay, who's up for a quiz at the end? We've still got 247 in after 2 hours and 11 minutes of me just filling the room with hot air. I hope a wee bit of it was worthwhile. But you will see a dip for the quiz at the end. That's always why the quiz is put out to the end. It's here for the folk that want to hang out and just enjoy a wee bit of quiz time. Jimmy Jazz is saying that Bowmore Sea Salt was awesome too. Absolutely. That was last year's discovery though. Doc brought me over 2 more bottles of Bowmore Sea Salt. I took them to, we were on Isla together. When we were on Isla, I opened one and one didn't make it back home. Quite amazing. But one of them made it back home intact. So I've still got some of that Bowmore. Jimmy's referencing the Bowmore Vault Edition Atlantic Sea Salt. It's not the #1 vaults, the cheap non-age statement one. No, it's not that. It's 51.5% ABV, I think, from memory. The Atlantic Sea Salt. Tropical Bowmore. Fabulous. I have to admit, I was on another social media in between, but this vPub hit a few spots inside and outside the park. Thanks, Roy. You're able to multitask, Falscraft, but you come back and give me the vote. Thank you very, very much. I feel very chuffed with that. Captain Bamis is saying, I'm in live. Let's do a quiz. Fantastic, Captain Bamis. Good luck with the quiz tonight. I hope you do well on it. Cheers. Let's bring it in. My sight's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Remember, this quiz is always multiple choice. You're only playing against yourself, like we always do. The pass mark tends to be 5, so it's pretty easy. I think I've got some easy questions in here tonight, but I've certainly got a few banana skins, and of course it always finishes on tricky, verging on ass hat style questions towards the end. Gordon Fraser is saying, going for a record 3 out of 10 this week. Easy, big guy, no problem. Sugar Kitty is in. Good to see Sugar Kitty. Multitasking is your friend. I'm a bit rubbish at it, if I'm honest. I really am. Anyone, good luck, everybody. Let's take the covers off this and see if we can get a lot of you past a pass mark tonight. Question 1 on a multiple choice quiz at the end. Ian MacLeod Distillers, owners of Tamdhu and Glengoyne, of course, are mature in their construction of which Renaissance distillery? Which Renaissance distillery have they been building for a long, long time now? Slower than expected, of course, all these things tend to be. Is it A, Wolf Craig, B, Falkirk, or C, Rosebank? 3 Central Belt distilleries in various stages of planning, construction, production. One of those is in construction, one of those is still in planning, one of those is in production, but only one of them is owned by Ian MacLeod Distillers and in a mature state of... The key here, to help you out along a wee bit, is if this isn't easy enough, is this idea of a Renaissance distillery. And of course, I'm talking about Rosebank that we lost in 1993. Very little mature casks left, no doubt. But Ian MacLeod are bringing them back on stream. There's talk that they could get it finished in 2022. Things in certain sections of the distillery seem to be fairly mature, but I don't know how close it is to accepting people to go along and see it. But if you answered C for Rosebank, give yourself a point. Good stuff. Most of you did. You were all very confident with that, I think. Benny Fries is saying, oh, I think I'm a little in love with that bottle. I wonder what you're talking about. Maybe the Glenord. Who knows? Question 2. After closing in 1996 and reopening in 2007, which Speyside brand has since taken top spot for malt sales in Sweden? Now you're thinking, Roy, this is so hard. Why is it so hard already? These are hard questions. Take your time and think a little. A, Jura. B, Tamnavulin. Or C, Tullibardine. After closing its doors in 1996, but then being brought back to life again in 2007, which Speyside brand has taken top spot for malt sales in Sweden? Helen was talking about the whiskey broker Speyside, 24-year-old. That was Limburg that I was introduced to. That Falsgraf was there. It was a cracker. I think it was that one. Yeah, whiskey broker Speyside, 24-year-old you're talking about, absolutely. Gordon Fraser is saying B because B. I'm thinking, and it's not helping, says Jimmy Legg. Okay, buddy, I'll go at a pace that maybe you're just being sarcastic. After closing in 1996 and reopening in 2007, it's just words, doesn't mean anything. It's just interesting that it was shut for that while, right? Which Speyside distillery has taken top spot for malt sales. Top spot for malt sales in Sweden. Who cares about the top swellings? It's just a successful thing. Just one market and right across Europe. The key here is Speyside. And of course, Jura is in the Highlands region. C, Tullibardine is in the Southern Highlands. And Tamnavulin is the only Speyside distillery there. So in case you didn't know, that Tamnavulin is the top selling malt in Sweden and also was shut between the years of 1996 and 2007. That's what should be helping you there. Not all questions are going to be like that. 3. What significant thing happened on the Clynelish site in 1960? Blair sarcastic, surely not, says Helen. Gordon Fraser is saying right there in front of our faces. Roy was ablaze. That was an interesting one, says Falsgraf. What significant thing happened on the Clynelish site in 1960? A. It was electrified. B. A fire consumed the majority of dunnage stock. C. It closed, making way for a new site. What significant thing happened on the Clynelish site in 1960? Dribs and Drams is saying that's pretty impressive. There's some great malt in Sweden. I think it's less to do with the great malt and more to do with the fact of their making. Well, we know 2017, the chances are it's going to all be young whiskey. Sorry, 2007 it came back online. And the Tamnavulin double cask has been on the market for 2016 or something, or 2015 it came back on. So we know it was quite young already when it arrived on the market. But they've since extended that range. It goes out at a fantastic low price point. It's easy drinking whiskey. It's a low ABV presentation. It's chill filtered and all of these things. But it's the same as so many brands out there. Glenmorangie, Classic Range, Jura. These are all high volume selling malts that are bringing people into the category all the time. Focus on making them as good as they can be, keep the prices, other people can come into that range and bolster it. That's where we need the next generation to be picking up whiskey and saying, wow, this is an amazing thing. It's all about the flavour. But I'm asking you, what significant thing happened to the Clynelish site in 1960? A, it was electrified. B, a fire. C, it closed. I can tell you that the old Clynelish did close, but that was in the late 60s. There probably was a fire, but there wasn't a fire consuming most of the dunnage stock in 1960. Interestingly, Clynelish was first electrified in 1960. 1960. That's why peat as a fuel was so crucial to a lot of these remote Highland sites. Tricky one, but if you answered A, it was electrified, give yourself a point. 4, Raymond Armstrong, once owner of Bladnoch, needed agreement from United Distillers to do what? United Distillers is one of the kind of previous names for what would become eventually, through various routes, Diageo. But United Distillers needed to give Bladnoch permission to do what? A, sell his whiskey as Bladnoch. B, make whiskey. Or C, convert warehousing into holiday homes. What did Raymond Armstrong need permission from United Distillers to do? He was the owner of Bladnoch Distillery at this time, but he needed to go, with the help of his community, interestingly, to make this happen. Most of you have got this too. Fantastic. James Morgan is saying you're doing better than me tonight with your guesses. Cool running. Some of you are guessing already. But I can see that absolutely most of you have got this absolutely spot on. Raymond Armstrong bought this distillery from United Distillers originally to convert warehousing into holiday homes. That was the sale. He needed permission, with support of the local community, to actually oops, I've made a mistake here. I suppose it's kind of similar. To make whiskey. He wasn't permitted to make whiskey. It should be B for everyone. But I tell you what, it kind of goes the same. Sell his whiskey as Bladnoch. Well, if he didn't have any whiskey. But I've made a wee mistake there. It's actually B. It's to make whiskey. That was in my rush to prepare for tonight. I obviously made a wee error. Take the point. You know what it's like. It's the rules of the vPub. If I've made a mistake, you can take a point on it. So if you've answered A, B, or hell, go with it. Make housing, it was part of the thing. You can take a freebie on that one. But the real answer was he needed permission to make whiskey in the first place. Question 5 is always a picture. And I think this is a tricky one tonight. I saw this picture and I thought, ooh, that's X. And then worked out that it wasn't. So I admit that it is a minor asshat tonight, but I think some of you might get this. We're obviously looking at a stillhouse. It is a Scottish distillery stillhouse. These are the same 3 options that's been there for a wee while now. A, Clynelish, B, Kalila, or C, Linkwood. Which stillhouse are we looking at? Cal Whisky is claiming a 3 out of 4 and thanking me for the mistake. Since I got it right, I'll take 2 points, says Mike Molasses. Good to see you, Mike. Rob Halford is still here, Rob. I hope you're doing well and still awake. He's on a 4 out of 4 too. Fantastic. Oh, this is kind of all over the place. People not sure whether we're looking at Clynelish, Kalila, or Linkwood. This is going to trip up a few of you. Rob Halford said Kalila out loud, so let's go with that. When I saw this, I saw that glass curtain to the left-hand side, Rob, and I shouted out Kalila. But I was wrong. We're actually looking at Clynelish, which is the same architect. Very similar buildings inside. The only thing that you could know for sure, well, I guess a wee bit of the details and things, but those still shapes, those are Clynelish stills, of which there are 3 pairs. You can see 4 there, well, and just in the foreground there, you can see a 5th still. Oh, I would have put my money on Kalila, says Ben, Whiskey with Molly. I saw this and I said Kalila straight away, and it's Clynelish. I have yet to take a tour of Clynelish. Question 6. What changed at Dramface this week? I've mentioned Dramface a couple of times tonight, but there was a significant change. What's happened at Dramface? Well, is it A, the editor has changed, B, the membership price has changed, or C, the release schedule has changed? What changed at Dramface this week? There's a wee Dramface logo here, dramface.com. I hope that you're all connecting with it. I hope you're enjoying it. I certainly get lots of positive feedback about it. Lots of people say that they're enjoying it. Jimmy Legg is going to be very upset with me. But no, he's covering these options. He's answering CCC and AAA. I can tell you that the release schedule has changed on Dramface, but it didn't happen this week. It happened a few weeks ago. We've been running on 5-day output, daily output, Monday to Friday, and taking weekend breaks during summer. The membership price has not changed. For the price of a magazine, about £3.99 a month, you can become a Dramface member and support an independent voice and get a few other benefits alongside, to keep Dramface running. So the membership price has not changed. £3.99 a month or $39.99 a year. But the editor has changed. Jason, the guy that came on originally as a consultant and a point of advice and everything to get it started. I managed to keep him happy for about, that's 6 months. He's stayed with us for a full 6 months. Full 6 months of being live, plus the 2 months building the site in advance. So I got 8 months out of somebody who was only going to give me a bit of advice. I'm really, really grateful to him. I want to raise a wee glass and just say, Jason, I know all the work that you're doing in the background. I know the research that you're putting into the Inverness distilleries. I know that you're tireless. I know that you're a machine. I'm so glad that you gave us so much of your energy while you were there. You've left us in rude health, buddy. Jason, thanks very much. He's not leaving. He's still going to be part of the voice of the site and everything. But yeah, the editor changed recently. We now leave Wally Macaulay is at the helm. Question 7. Waterford, Chininic, and Inchdearney all have something in common. Which of these is it? What do Waterford in Ireland, Chininic in the Highlands, and Inchdearney over Inchdearney is it's a lowland, isn't it? Inchdearney. What do they all have in common? You'd think I would just know all of these pages inside out by now. Yeah, lowland. A, straight-necked with pot stills. Straight-neck stills with adjustment plates. B, annual campaigns of rye and oat mashes. C, hammer mills and mash filters. So we're looking for something that's a little bit different, and those 3 distilleries have it in common. A bit geeky here. A, straight-neck pot stills with adjustment plates. B, annual campaigns of rye and oat mashes. Or C, hammer mills and mash filters. Ryan Sutherland is saying Aquavite. Jason is a legend. Jason is tireless and does not like the use of grass when describing whiskey. Yeah, he's okay with fruit. He's okay with floral. He's okay with smoky. He's okay with dry and sweet and all of these kind of very, very generic things. But if you say grassy, it gets his shackles up. Absolutely, Jimmy. You listen to the podcast, don't you? Falsgraph is saying, do I have any idea of Inchdearney at all? Well, they're quite experimental. It's a bit of a skunk works up there. They're keeping things close to their chest. They're doing lots of odd things. I think that the stuff that they've released so far is a wee bit out of my comfortable price bracket. So I have only tried the occasional wee dram here and there. Most recently, I tried their rye. Jimmy Legg is saying, I think that's mash filters. Jimmy, you're absolutely right. Waterford, Chininic, Inchdearney, they all have a different weight. So if you've ever been on a distillery tour and you see the roller mill, you usually see a Porteous mill. It's often painted red. Sometimes Ardbeg and other places it's painted a different colour. or you see a Bobby mill, and they're very similar. They're roller mills, and they're all looked after by the same guy, the famous Ronnie Lee. But these three distilleries have a much more kind of large scale, slightly more efficient, different way of doing things. And they can also, through these hammer mill and mash filters, they can handle different grains. It's easier for them to handle oats and rye and other grains too. Waterford, Chininic, and Inchtierney all have those things in common. Question 8. How many years of continuous production had Port Ellen enjoyed at the point of its closure in 1983? We lost Port Ellen in 1983. Port Ellen in Southern Islay is now coming back on stream. It's due to be open, they say, later this year. I don't think there's a chance. 2023, I think it's going to open again. But it closed in 1983. So it'll be 40 years closed. But what I want to know is how many years of continuous operation did it enjoy up until 1983? Was it A, 116 years of continuous operation, B, only 56 years of continuous operation, or C, a miserly 16 years of continuous operation? Quite a range in choice there. How many years was Port Ellen open when it shut in 1983? Now, I know that it was founded way in the past. I'm asking about continuous years. Graham Fraser is scoring 7 out of 7 tonight. Well done, Graham. I think you might be the only one that's confident tonight. Struggling. Barter Hordes, 2 out of 7. Thank you, buddy, for just taking part and being a good sport about it as well. You've got Captain Bamis to keep you company there too. Still a couple of questions left in the bag for you to try and pull it out and maybe get a pass mark. I can tell you that Port Ellen closed in 1930. It didn't reopen again until 1967, which meant it only had 16 years of continuous operation. Port Ellen is a closed and lost distillery, a ghost distillery, if you like. But back in its day, the 70s, late 60s, early 80s, when it was operational, it was also a Renaissance distillery that was brought back to life. Whiskey is cyclical. Whiskey is fashion. It's incredible. One of the legendary distilleries out there was only continuously operational for 16 years. Post-war. Question 9. Rutter, Cutter. And I don't know if this is Flochter or Flauter. Let's go with Flochter. Rutter, Cutter, Flochter, Rascan, and Tushka are releases associated with which distillery? Rutter, Cutter, Flauter, Rascan, and Tushka are releases associated with which distillery? I need to be careful. I'm going to be getting called Menno tonight. Is it A, Knockdhu, B, Anok, or C, Glenglassaugh? Captain Bamis, yeah, the quizzes are easy. Thank you, buddy. Thick-skinned, that's what you need to be. You do get better at it at times. The folk that have been here a while, they do seem to find that the quizzes get a wee bit easier. But I think this one is a wee bit dodgy tonight. A wee bit dodgy. This is splitting you. Wow, more than I expected. More than I expected. James Morgan giving me a wink there. I'll wink right back at you, James. Well done, buddy. I feel my feet slipping out from under me already, says Mike Molasses. What did you answer, Mike? Terrific. Of course. There's a banana skin here. Rutter, Cutter, Flauter, Rascan, and Tushka are releases. Not from Anok. Anok is not a distillery, it's a brand. Knockdhu distillery is the answer. These are all peated releases. Peatlands and Peat Heart is I think Peat Heart is the one that's currently the peated Anok that's out there. But Anok is not a distillery. Anok is a brand. The distillery is Knockdhu. That's what the banana skin icon was there for. Just got the banana skin Aquavite and fell right to Pedro Menezes. Sorry, Pedro. So there we go. One more question to go. It is an asshat tonight. It definitely is. Let's see how the scoring is going for you all so far. Tony Nelson is pulling a cracker out. 8 out of 9, and Too Slow Rob is already in a pass mark 6 out of 9, along with Dancing Midgie. Glenn, Dancing Midgie, good to see you, buddy. It's nice to welcome you in a vPub. It's been a wee while. I hope you're healthy, well. It's great to welcome you here. Andrew Pearce is on a pass mark. So is Chuck Malt Minion. Marty Wong needs one more. Molasses is celebrating terrific stuff. Cool Running is on a 3 out of 9. Oh, he might struggle. He's going to struggle. He's not going to make a pass mark tonight, buddy, but it's good to see you participating. Jimmy Jazz on 7. Whiskey with Molly on 6. Steve Atkis is relieved, saying few. Dogs have no uncles. Good to see in Colin already on a pass mark. Graham 7 is slipped. The wheels have come off at the end. Graham is on a 7 out of 9. I must have caught him out with that banana skin. Batter Hordes is saying woot. He's celebrating getting a point. Terrific Barter. He's on 3 out of 9 now. Hellswood is on 7 out of 9. My goodness. So this is going to catch out everybody. I don't think that we're going to see a 10 out of 10 tonight. Oh, I wouldn't get caught out there because I expected to see at least 1 or 2. Let's see what this asshat question is at the end. Good luck, everybody. Fernando saying, I hope it's an easy asshat. I need this to pass. Okay, Fernando, good luck. If Portentruan, that's the new distillery on Isla. Well, it's Portentruan, but they're actually pronounced it Portentruan. So Portentruan proceeds, if it goes ahead with its worm tub condensers, which seems like it will be the case. How many malt distilleries in total, Scotch malt distilleries, will be employing this type of traditional condenser? How many in total if Portentruan goes ahead with its worm tubs? A, about the same as the capacity of Glenlivet in million litres per annum. So if Glenlivet does 10 million litres, it does not, then I'm looking for 10 worm tub distilleries to give you an idea. B, about the same as the number of operating Diageo distilleries, currently operating Diageo Scotch malt distilleries. Or C, about the same as new distilleries opened since 2005, new Scotch malt distilleries. Qualifier here throughout this entire question is Scotch malt. So how many worm tub distilleries will there be once Portentruan goes ahead? Is it the same of the million litre as an asshat? Rob is calling it out as such, yes, as Glenlivet in million litres per annum. About the same as Diageo operating distilleries, but about the same as new distilleries since 2005. I didn't think there were this many, says Jimmy Legg. I've got a list of them somewhere, Jimmy. See if I can call it up. Yep. I don't know if it's definitive. It's my own list, if I'm honest. But I'm saying about, more or less. Are you counting Springbank? Yes, Jimmy, I am counting Springbank. I am. Graham Fraser is saying C. I think it totals 20. Let's just put you out of the misery. Falsgraf is laughing. Chance 50-50, I guess. What did you guess, Falsgraf? I wonder. I can tell you that Glenlivet produce around 20 to 21, or have the capability to produce about 20 to 21 million litres of alcohol per annum. That's a malt distillery. It's incredible. Operating Diageo distilleries, it used to be 28, but of course it's 29 now that Brora is operational again, and they will have 30 distilleries when Port Ellen is operational. About the same as new distilleries open since 2005. That's somewhere between 30 and 40. My count is about 34 or 35, depending on how you define it. Kilchoman being the variable there. So I am telling you that there are 20 worm tub distilleries. So the answer is A, Glenlivet with 20 to 21 million litres per annum. It's about the same. So there we go. A brutal asshat question. But if you want to know what the worm tub distilleries are, I believe them to be Ardnahoe, Ballinadalach, Benrinnes, Glenkinchie, Craigenmore, Dalwhinnie, Glenelgin, Mortlach, Oban, Royal Lochnagar, Talisker, Craigellachie, Edradour, Balmenach, Knockdhu, Old Pulteney, Speyburn, Rosebank, and Springbank. So there we have it. And of course, Portentruan would make that 20. So I know that there's no 10 out of 10s to celebrate tonight. Let's just take that away. Hope that I don't get too much of a pasting from you guys. Gordon Fraser is celebrating a pass. Fantastic, Gordon. Well done to you. Ha, Jimmy Legg is saying on 7 out of 10. Terrific stuff. Nicholas is saying 7 out of 10. Good to see you, Nicholas. Too Slow Rob is on 6 out of 10. Ian Whisky in that. Good to see you. And Ian. Ian was with us on Monday. It's good to see him here. He's saying boo on 7 out of 10. That's an incredible score. I think that was quite a tough one tonight, buddy. Chuck Malt Minion on 7 out of 10. Fantastic. Tommy Elmer was saying, dang, had to work. Missed the quiz. Tom, come back. It's a belter tonight. And Angie says, hi, Aquavite. She just got home and heard your voice. Angie, hello. Straight back at you. I hope you're well, and I hope Jimmy is looking after you. 8 out of 10 for Cal Whisky. What a belter. I think that's going to be hard to beat, Cal Whisky. I think it's going to be very hard to beat. I'm looking at Graham Fraser. He got 7 out of 10, mind blown. He was doing very, very well. The wheels came off right at the end. Jamie Jazz also managed a 7 out of 10 along with Nicholas. Hellswood got a 7 out of 10, nay bad. So she's pragmatic about it. Fantastic. Sugar Kitty saying after this stream, well, wish Kilco a happy birthday on his stream. Oh my goodness. What time is it? He's gone live. Oh, I need to be off in a couple of minutes. I think my timing's okay. I think I did suggest that I would be away. I had no idea that it was his birthday, but I'll drop in, and I'm very happy for you to be sharing the stream for Brian Kilco. I'll raise this wee glass to now and say, Brian, many happy returns, my good friend. Cheers to you. Terrific happy. Oh, Dingle. Just buff, Dingle. Fantastic. Very happy with 7 today. Great questions, Nicholas. Thank you for being pragmatic. Thank you for being okay with it. It was pretty brutal. Too Slow saying, thanks, Roy. Jimmy Legs bought me a dram to finish. You star. Almost forgot to buy you a dram tonight. Yikes. Love you and all the great people here. Jimmy, I love you too. And thank you very much for coming along and making it fun every week, as all of you do. You're just fantastic folk to hang out with on a Thursday, anytime, but specifically for me on a Thursday night. Ellen is saying, fabulous chilled vPub, Roy. Thank you. See you next week when we'll be tuning in for our cottage in Keswick. I never even mentioned anything about that, but next week is going to be a community thing. We're going to get a blind challenge going on. We're going to get some folk that have been involved in the vPub earlier this year, around about Christmas time, since Christmas time. We're going to get them in here. We'll have a good, fun community challenge. If I've got enough whiskey for the whiskies I pick to go around, I'll send out 1 or 2 to you guys as well. But if you have to be in a place, of course, I can legally put whiskey in your hands. Gordon Fraser saying, thanks, boss. Great vPub. Thanks to you, Gordon. It's wonderful to have you in. Falscraft is saying, I remain a slightly above, but mainly on par vPub participant. Simply a slightly nerdy whiskey fan. Nice to be what I want to be. Aye. You're very much what I want you to be too, and that's a good guy. I look forward to bumping into you again in Germany, buddy. Whiskey with Molly Ben is saying, thanks as always, another wonderful vPub. Ben, thank you very much. That means a lot, my friend, and it was nice to hang out with you this week too. It's amazing to see how many of you have actually been able to spend time with. It's fabulous. That's what it's all about. That's what the Aquavite Barflies page is all about as well, making those connections happen over on Facebook. Whiskey with Molly, thank you so much. Falscraft, Chris, Pedro Jimenez, Jimmy Jazz, Jaime Not Jamie, everybody, Tommy Elmer, thank you so much for tonight. Look forward to hanging out with you next week. North Coast Drama, Tony is a member for 18 months. He's celebrating. That's in great vPub. Thanks, Aquavite, and cheers. Thanks to you all. Let's see if I can just grab one of these and work out what it is. Smoky peaty one. Aye, very sweet. It's got to be the 1770. Listen, I'm just going to raise this glass and I'm going to say, I'm looking forward to my holiday, my break this year. I know I'm going to miss you all, but we're still going to get together for one last vPub before we break up and just have a lot of folk on and just have a bit of good fun and a wind up before we go dark for a few weeks. And until then, I'll raise this glass and tell you all, as I always do, that you're very dearly loved. And I look forward to hanging out with you again for the last time before summer next week. Thank you, folks. Slanchivata.